And you are listening to the first edition of JetX Live, which is really our second. I think we've done this before, fellas, but we're going to edit an intro. Maybe we'll get a nice little header. We'll do some graphic stuff. We'll get some graphic guys to do that. But really excited. We were planning on doing this, for quite a while, and I think it's something we need to do. Getting us three on a platform. But Sabo, hit you up first. What's going on, man?
Fellas, what's up? Devils game last night. Why do you torture yourself like that? I don't. How could anyone be a Devils fan? I don't get it.
Coming from a Jets fan, I question that logic.
Yeah, we're not allowed to tell people who to root for. We have no right to talk about that.
Yeah, but how many championships do the Rangers have in the last 30 years of your lifetime, Sabo?
I'm not good at math.
Oh, okay. Nania, what's up, man?
Not everything that we had to watch over the first few games, how awful it was. That one felt really good. That stands out. It was one of my favorite plays. 2015 had a bunch of plays that a bunch of finishes that are really good with the Giants game, the Patriots game. So, I mean, those are a few that come to mind, but I feel like this team, when you look at the past 15 years or so, it's so obvious, the top moments, it's all back in that the first two Rex years. So, and then after that, it's just such slim choices.
Yeah. As a Sam Darnold stan that you are, Nania, was that throw to Robbie Anderson against the Cowboys a little bit overrated to you?
That was during the point where I was still a Sam Darnold stan, but then I hopped off the train after that. I was definitely a Sam Darnold supporter / stan all the way up through the very beginning of the Bills game in 2020, but that game was so bad, then that sort of had me curious a little bit. And then from there, it just kept going downhill, never stopped. So I was just being honest, and I was like, it's just not happening this year. But at that point, I would say that was the peak of Sam Darnold's Jets career. Wouldn't you agree?
To be honest, like that. So that was, I think, really like relieving that game, just because it was the first four games against the Browns and what was it, the Eagles that game too, where we had the backups of the backups.
The opener with the Bills, then there was the Browns, a game that I was at, then there was the Patriots and the Eagles. So it was ugly.
Yeah. So it was really bad with that, obviously, with us playing with backups and practice squad type quarterbacks. And then Darnold comes back, and obviously we beat the Cowboys, who we were supposed to get blown out by. I remember guys like DeMarcus Lawrence like coming out and saying they're going to smack the Jets and all of this stuff. And then he comes back and wins that game. I was pretty excited. I would say the peak of it for me of the Sam Darnold thing was really the Packers game, the Texans game. I remember being at work watching the Texans game. I couldn't get off. And just like saying to my coworkers, like, oh, this is the guy, like we found him, like undoubtedly just like went head to head with Deshaun Watson, should have won that game. And then obviously year two happens, and year two overall was really disappointing for all of us. I think we kind of try to bend it to where it was like, better than it was. Like we didn't really see him take the steps we wanted to. And then it obviously just did not get any better with year three. We're trying to work on the stream. I don't know what's going on with it, but hopefully we get it back on. I think we're on, Nania. If somebody can comment if we're even live streaming right now, that'd be great. But Sabo, are we on?
Yeah, I think you're still on.
Okay. People are saying it looks fine now. So we're just talking about some of the best and worst memories. I'll go to mine really quickly. I'm going to say mine it was actually pretty easy for me, just because I've been to a lot of games and things like that. The 2009 opener was, I think, easily the best game I've ever been to. You literally had players coming out after that game, after they beat Bill Belichick, Rex Ryan's first home game, not going to kiss the rings, all that stuff. And they come out and players are literally saying that the stadium is vibrating. It was absolutely electric in that stadium. My hands were bruised from smashing there's like these like air vents, whatever. Great game. And I'm going to say the worst is I think Nani referred to as a low hanging fruit there, with just some of the memories in general. But that Bills game, 2015, I was there. Snowballs thrown at us, everything. It was just absolutely brutal. So, Sabo, if the stream is fixed and you're good to go, give me your best and your worst.
Well, I could tell you my worst when I was a kid. They probably both will come when I was a kid, because that's when my fandom was highest. Best is same game. Best was 10-0 lead early third quarter in Denver. Mark Schlereth kind of reminded Jets fans of that recently. By the way,
excuse my French, but what a douche.
It's so pathetic. That is so pathetic.
You know, he's trying to get everyone riled up.
I get it, but doesn't that hurt your kind of your reputation a little bit to like be bickering with like Jets fans? Like I didn't even know about it, and he's probably going at Jets fans with like 4 followers on Twitter who keep bothering him, like putting your helmet on, giving us a finger, like just grow up. Like I don't know if CTE is kicking in hard with that guy or like what's going on, but I think he's a disgrace. Like what a loser. I know the Broncos aren't going anywhere with Drew Lock this year, but don't be that salty. But yeah, so moving on. We'll do some quick questions. We'll get into it again. I hope everybody refresh. If obviously you're listening, you already know, but hopefully you guys refresh your stream and get in here. Comment, we'll answer them. If we don't see your comments again, there is I think it should be there, Sabo, the ability to super chat. We'll definitely get it, or to the comment if that is the case. Next thing I want to get into, favorite and least favorite Jets of all time. Again, drop some people in the chat that you guys are big fans of or not big fans of. But not, I guess we'll go to Sabo first. We started with Nania last time. Give me some of your favorite Jets and some of your non-favorite or some of your least favorite Jets.
Right now, of all time?
Of all time.
All time, Al Toon was the first one that I could remember. 6, 7, 8 years old. Al Toon's definitely up there. Liked Ronnie Lott, even though it was a short-lived era. Ronnie Lott and Wayne Corbett for sure. So I think those 3 were the top 3. Least favorite? That's a good question.
I have a lot in mind. I can rattle off a lot.
Go ahead.
That's an easier one.
Rattle
at least for us younger fans.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you guys probably have some too. But I mean,
some people are dropping some Vernon Golston's in there. Eagle Fang said Martin, Revis, Corbett. Worst Golston, Neil O'Donnell, D. Milner. The hate on D. Milner, I don't get it. He's just
I feel like to be a disliked player, it's more so than just playing bad. I feel like there has to be more to it than that.
Yeah.
Because like D. Milner, bust, not a good pick, but nothing not really to like about him. It's just that he's not a good player. But then like Tremaine Johnson, Henry Anderson, you have a dirty player, a guy who just loafed around the field with his $70 million contract. Like that makes you unlikable to me.
Yeah, guys like Kyle Wilson, like the finger wag after guys would drop balls but be beating them by 10 yards, like things like that definitely bothered me. 2 more quick things, and then we'll get into some of the other questions. I don't know if we're having some more technical difficulties, Robbie, but
I keep looking at this. All right, fellas, we're gonna disconnect and restart it in 1 second.
Okay.
All right.
Are we leaving the meeting?
Hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second.
I don't know if we're still live. If we
All
are,
right, keep going. See what
no. If we are live, it is what it is. But people are definitely dropping. But it's funny. See what happens. Me and Kyle Smith. It's completely fine. You guys come on, and the whole stream is just ruined. So I apologize, listeners, if you're still listening.
I blame Robbie.
Yeah,
I take no accountability.
He's a tech guy usually for us, so
as soon as my video turns on, all hell breaks loose, and there's no way again. It just doesn't make sense. All right, it's back. Keep going. If it drops one more time, we're gonna disconnect and restart it. But let's go.
Okay, so for the people in the chat again, we apologize. If we do drop again, let us know in the chat. We appreciate you guys letting us know. Now we will drop if that's the case, but let us know. So moving on. Which is good. We're kind of not talking about all the topics we need to talk about. We're talking about some stupid stuff. So it's good. It's going in and out right now. Favorite non-Jet of all time? Nania.
I like Russell Wilson. I'm a huge Russell Wilson fan. I think I like his game. And also I just think he's like a good guy off the field, really. Like just a good, like the quintessential franchise quarterback sort of. So I'll go with Russell.
I think he's a little cheesy on Twitter, and I don't know.
I didn't say I like the Twitter game. I'm just sort of the on-field leadership. So,
what about your favorite guy on defense? You have a guy who's on defense.
I just marvel at Aaron Donald. He's ridiculous. Just like every time I watch a Rams game, like I went back and watched some Franklin Myers from his time with the Rams, Joyner. Yeah. Like whenever you put on a Rams game, like it's almost every single play he's just winning easily right off the ball, and it's ridiculous. I think he's the best player in the league relative to his own position. So Donald is amazing to me.
Didn't he just get in
And
trouble for
there was
something?
that too.
I was gonna say, didn't he just
was
beat the
just
crap out of
in
somebody?
a bar fight? So that honestly adds to it for me.
Michael Nania condones
I condone
aggravated assault.
No,
it is what it is.
Okay. There were some good memes. I think that's why I like it. So.
Sabo, give me your favorite on offense, your favorite on defense.
Currently non-Jet right now.
Yeah, well, not doesn't have to be current. All time favorite, favorite defense, favorite offense. Yeah.
You know what? I'll stick to since you guys are the younger generation, I'll stick to the old theme. Barry Sanders offense and Ronnie Lott defense.
Ronnie Lott. I'll go quickly. Mine is 100% easily. I would say favorite, both any player, doesn't matter if it's a Jet or not. Brian Dawkins is my favorite player of all time. It does not matter. On defense, definitely. And then I would say offense, probably Steve Smith. Big Steve Smith guy. I like the grit that guy had. Last question. We'll get into some season thoughts. Hopefully we are live. Appreciate everybody for sticking with us, and hopefully we don't drop again. If you had to root for another team, Nania, who would it be? Tough question. I had to think about this for a while.
I mean, it's tough because like on the surface, you don't want to pick the regional teams because you feel like, because as a Jets fan, like you don't like the Giants, you don't like the Bills, but I feel like I would want to stick with the region instead of just picking like another random team. Like, I guess like it depends on the scenario. Like, do the Jets still exist, or are we just taking the Jets out of the NFL? Because if we're taking the Jets out of the league, then I think it would be easier to just be like, all right, now I'm going to root for the Bills. Now I'm going to root for the Giants. But if the Jets are still in the league, then I feel like that'd be harder to do.
Yeah, somehow they got sold to somebody else. They changed locations.
Went to Canada or China or something.
London.
To expand the game to London.
We got a Raiders.
I'm gonna go with the Eagles. I'm gonna go with the Eagles. Opposite conference, still similar part of the country. So,
Sabo, what about you?
I kind of like the. They have a good fan base. Not good, but passionate, I think is a better word.
Yeah, I think your clarification is good there, because Philly fans are like some of the only fans I've seen who will literally cheer when people get injured. I think it was Big Ben got
like
carted
fan
off.
bases like that. Like,
I think
throwing snowballs at Santa. Yeah, I mean, how could you not like that?
When Big Ben got carted off, was that Philly or Cincinnati? I might be tripping off fan bases, but he was getting carted off. He hurt his leg, and they were throwing beer at him and stuff. That might have been Philly. I know
Victor Cruz for one.
Who would you root for? Jets got sold. London changed their name.
Chicago Bears.
Really?
Chicago Bears.
So I'm on the same thing with Nania. We got some Giants in here. Cardinals. I agree with Mike. Baltimore. Baltimore would definitely be my team. You could still travel to their games. Good organization. Good fan base. But Baltimore would be mine.
I'd go Chicago because of the Chris Farley SNL skit. And
because of that,
and they sort of mirror the Jets in a way. You know, the quarterback struggle has always been there.
But why would you want that if you could choose a new team?
I guess I like pain. I don't know.
That, and it's not like the Jets like this year. Like we have Zach Wilson coming in, maybe Justin Fields. They're rolling with Andy Dalton, and you're gonna go into that. Hey, God bless you, Robbie.
Yeah,
that kind of does match. Like you always bring up the 80s football and the defense and all this stuff. So I can definitely see you as a Bears guy.
I'm a sucker for pain. What could I tell you?
49ers is a good one too. I think mine really stems for like having to be able to go to the game still. Like I can't not go to games. As you guys can hear, I lost my voice at the Devils game. That's like my fourth team. Jets games. It's wild. We have a good time. So rip Chris Farley, the GOAT of comedy. I agree. Big fan. But let's get into some of the season thoughts now. We'll do this pretty quickly just because the season happened quite a while ago. But again, we haven't live streamed together in probably a year or so. But I do want to get your guys kind of quick thoughts on the season, which I think we're going to have some similar thoughts here, but kind of from like what your expectations were to what actually happened, and where you stood at the end of the season. Sabo, we'll go with you first this time.
I mean, what can you say? It was historic for a league that you could march the ball down the field so easily. What can you say about that offense? I never thought they'd go winless. Deep in my heart, I never thought it was possible. Even when they were 0-12, 0-13, I thought they'd win somewhere, even after the Greg Williams game, Henry Ruggs. So, I mean, what can you say? I think coaching will make a huge difference for sure. I think the quarterback play will make a huge difference for sure moving forward.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. When you analyze these guys, who said it? Damian Woody, I think, the other day. Woody or Cologne, one of the two. The offensive line is getting dumped on right now. And sort of rightfully so. But I don't think, and you guys would agree with this, I don't think they're as bad as the numbers showed last year.
Yeah.
With the quarterback, with coaching, that's going to drastically improve. Yeah, they need an interior lineman or two, but it's going to drastically improve. It's about, as Joe Douglas says all the time, it's about culture. And Schlereth, not to go back to him, but Schlereth, I heard him say this today or yesterday, it's not just about talent. And that's what the Madden players and a lot of fans think. It's not just about talent. It's about that culture. It's about that teamwork and doing the extra stuff for the next guy next to you. That's how you really bring it all together and cement a consistent winner. So it's tough to, review what happened last year and connect it with anything moving forward. What can you say? I guess the Lawrence thing was the biggest narrative and it didn't work out in the end, but
how many times I feel like you're the most like mature one out of the three of us for sure, Sabo. And they're
got the gray hair. Look at
how many times would me and Nania be like in the chat in like Slack, like talking about like, oh, well, if the Jets lose this game, they have this schedule percentage chance and all this stuff. Like we were like that, those last couple of weeks, like I told you guys, and I'm not even, maybe I'm just a psychopath, but like there's literally would be nights I would lose sleep, like thinking about who the Jets could lose to, who the Jaguars could beat. I'm happy that, we have the kind of the quarterback decision we have coming up because I do like some of the quarterbacks past Trevor Lawrence. But yeah, the season was brutal. Like we've had so many brutal seasons. This one, I think we all expected them to maybe have 6, 7, 8 wins just based on what they did last year. We were obviously all greatly disappointed. Sam Darnold, I think in all three of our opinions, greatly regressed. The offensive line, I think, is better than some people say it is. That's not to say it's great, but people kind of still connect it with the offensive line of 2019. And the offensive line of 2019 was literally one of the Nania dropped off. One of the worst offensive lines we've seen for the Jets in years. So now
Nania
people
dropped off, so we found the culprit right there.
Yeah. Hopefully we're still, again, I don't know why we're having issues. I apologize, guys. But yeah, the offensive line, again, like last year, I think it was below average where people kind of, again, pair it with the offensive line 2019, where the offensive line 2019 was absolutely dreadful. Like this line was not good, but it was better. So like, yeah, that was, that upgraded a little bit. The defense was still bad. The corners were still bad. Pierre Desir was a huge disappointment, like overall, but like your major takeaways from that season was basically two things. One, Adam Gase, we knew he was a sitting duck. A lot of people kind of tried to throw out some conspiracy theories about him staying, which I've said this before. I think if Adam Gase stayed, JetX would have had a really good 1-year run and we would have retired.
That would have been a disaster. Listen, ownership knew if they kept Gase or even thought about it, that would have been the apocalypse. Fans would have revolted and they knew it.
Yeah. Appreciate some of the people in the chat saying some kind things. We'll get to some of the chat questions later. Thank you everyone for being here. Eagle, Lewis, Steven, Sean, DPS, sports fan, Giants fan. Of course, there's a Giants fan in here talking crap. It is what it is.
Is there really? Okay.
Of course, it is what it is. So let me ask you a question directly. I'll ask you this before we get into the rest of the thoughts and some of Nani's thoughts, because it's a question directed at you, Robbie. Eagle Fang, this question's for you. Assuming the Jets draft Zach Wilson, do you redshirt him for the year and let him learn and start him next year? Which, again, we will get to the quarterback debate in a little bit, so hold back a little bit if you could. Last time the Jets redshirted a rookie quarterback, it was Chad Pennington, he thinks. So what would you think about that?
It only works if it's the right situation. Everyone points to KC, and yeah, it works if it's the right situation. But KC was already a good team. They had Alex Smith. Mm-hmm. And if you're in the playoffs already, before you get a Mahomes, before you get your quarterback, it could work. In this situation, it doesn't work. You're still building. You're not a proven winner. Even Pennington, that was a proven winner situation. They still had Vinny going strong. And Corbett loved Vinny. Corbett and Vinny, that connection was otherworldly. I can't describe it any differently, but yeah, it's a great situation when you can pull it off. Unfortunately, they're just not in that situation.
Yeah, it's funny too, because like and people are calling him out in the chat, which I love. Jets fans, they're like, you're talking about, because the Giants fan is talking about Zach Wilson, playing teams like North Alabama, and then people are like, yo, your quarterback played at Duke. Like, what are you talking about? Right. And Danny Dimes was like a guy who was going to fall in the draft. Like, we're talking about Zach Wilson versus Danny Dimes. Daniel Jones in terms of prospect. Zach Wilson blows him out of the water in terms of a prospect, and they might be moving on from Daniel Jones this year. I think the Giants are in a situation right now where they really poured into the offense, because the GM, the coach, they all might not be gone if they have to move on for their quarterback, and they might look for that reset. So they're kind of pouring all their assets they can into that offense and see if it can work. If not, they might be for a really long.
He's got 1 more year left, Daniel Jones. He's got 1
exactly.
year to show it.
And they gave him Galladay, and if not, they fire their coach, they fire their GM, they move on, new quarterback, and then we'll see what happens with them next year. So but yeah, the season obviously coming away from it with getting rid of Adam Gase was a positive. Darnold, we all, I think I speak for probably all of us. Well, not with Nania not being here anymore, but
yeah, he'll come back on. He was the culprit, I think, because of his internet. So I told him to take his time, restart his router, make sure his internet is good, and let me know when he's back in.
Okay, yeah, but I think I speak for at least the us three at Jets X Factor. We're like, Darnold, we were optimistic going into year 3, or relatively optimistic, but we all had our doubts because at the end of year 2, like year 2, there really wasn't one of those games that he had in 2018, like his first year. Like, he didn't have that Packers game, he didn't have that Texans game. Like his 2019, while the 6-8 or the 6-2 finish at the end of the season wasn't overly impressive. Like, there were some games, the Redskins and things like that, but still it wasn't overly impressive to end the year. So we were optimistic, but we still had our doubts. And then obviously he turned out for the worse. We traded him. So getting into that, what do you think, Sabo, about the compensation, 2, kind of what happened with Darnold year 3? Was it the right move? I know your opinion on this. I think everybody else does, but it's something that we should discuss.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, this is a kid who threw 9 touchdowns to 11 picks in 12 games, and Douglas got 3 picks out of it, including a second rounder. To me, it's not a Rosen situation. Rosen only played a handful of games, and they got that return. Darnold's played 3 seasons, and Douglas still got that return. So I think it's a hell of a return. It just adds to what Douglas has done with Jamal Adams and Leonard Williams. I know where you stand too. They had to make this move. Mm-hmm. The argument is legitimate to keep Darnold and trade down to collect extra assets. It's a legitimate argument. There's no question. The problem is they already have a bunch of assets, and building the team on a rookie deal for a quarterback has been a cheat code for consistent winning teams. When you look at all the consistent winning teams over the last decade, 90% of them have played with a rookie contract for a quarterback. Douglas knows this. Even though he's a scout at heart, he knows the salary cap, and that is the better path. So yeah, I think it's the best move. Zach Wilson is next, and away we go. Where do you stand on it?
Yeah, and there was like good. Like I get the whole trade down thing, but that's putting a lot of faith into Darnold. And again, like, just to be simple, like we've discussed this a lot on this live stream. But the fact is, like, people expected that Tannehill jump, which Tannehill to me is a guy who's a little bit overrated. A lot of people talk about him like he was like a top 5 guy after that 2019 season. Yeah. I don't think that was the case. I still think he's in that 10 to 15 type of range.
Well, that's the key, right? You want Douglas's job is to find the next special guy. You don't want a Tannehill or Goff, guys who could ebb and flow with the personnel, with the scheme, who could be great, who could be not be great. That's the key. So yeah, I completely agree with you on Tannehill.
Yeah, and even if it was that jump, let's say, Darnold, listen, like his last year, like minus stats, minus whatever, he was a bottom 3 to 5 quarterback in the NFL last year.
Back.
And there's Nania. So we're kind of recapping the season. We're talking about Darnold.
Right.
But yeah, and he, like I said, even if he took that jump that Tannehill took, you're going from, let's be positive and say it was the 30th best quarterback in the league this year to 20th. Tannehill went from 21, 22, 20 to 10, 11, 12. So, and Tannehill's still not even enough for me. And like you said, and Sabo, I know you did a podcast, we were discussing it, like the quarterbacks to even just make the Super Bowl, the quarterbacks to win a Super Bowl in the last, however many years on their second contract, which is coming for Darnold. I've said it many times, Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers, I believe, Drew Brees, who else is in there? There's a couple, it's like all elite guys. I know there's 5 guys I usually bring up: Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, Ben Roethlisberger, Tom Brady, Eli Manning, and maybe I think there's one more. Drop it in the chat. But again, what's the theme with all these guys? They're elite. Yes. So you need, if you're going to win on your second contract, you need to be elite. Do we have enough faith in Darnold to be elite? No. And and obviously a lot of people's like fix for it was, oh, well, you just ride out Darnold for another year. If he doesn't work out, you just get a quarterback next year. It's so easy to just pick up another quarterback. One, or there's multiple layers to that. One, who says what quarterbacks are going to be available next year? What if it's a quarterback draft that's not good? Who says the teams who are at 1, 2, and 3 want to let you trade up for a quarterback if they don't need their own? Obviously, teams who are usually that low need their own quarterbacks. And then 3, what if it's a draft where you have a Daniel Jones and a Dwayne Haskins? Like, who are you trading up for in that type of draft? So I think it was an easy decision to move on from Darnold after the season. Nania, I know you're very positive about Darnold. Yeah. You were happy the Jets thanked him for going out. That tweet, I know that was a big area of conversation for you. But thoughts on the 2019 season overall, or the 2020 season overall? And then kind of get into Darnold, your overall thoughts, what went wrong, trade compensation, get into all that.
Yeah, I mean, outside of Darnold, I think really my biggest takeaway from 2020 is that I think there are a lot of positive things we could take out of it. Even though they only won 2 games, I feel like they sort of had enough players who are young and under contract going forward play well that sort of set them up positively for the future going forward. From Douglas's draft class with Becton, Mims, Bryce Hall, Ashton Davis showed a little bit. There was lots of light from his draft class. Quinnen's second-year leap was huge. Franklin Myers, he took an enormous leap. Fatukasi continued playing well. So I think there was a lot of positive stuff to take out of it. And they really weren't, in terms of what they're carrying going forward, not quite as bad as a 2-win roster. I'm not saying they're great, but there were a lot of positive things to take out of it, I think. And then in terms of Darnold, I think everything you said pretty much sums it up. It definitely, even though the support was not good, there's a bar you need to be at to where you could still be trusted to get another chance. And I think he was at that level in the first 2 years. His finish over the last 4 games of 2018 was great. In 2019, he was a mixed bag. He had some really bad games, but he also had some really good ones. But this year, there were no really good games. He didn't have one game where he was great. And he had a bunch of games where he was really bad. So,
I would argue not one of his games was even like average.
Right. Like, you can absolutely make that argument. I think the Niners game, he had some great plays. There's obviously the one play everyone looks at to sort of pump him up. But he also had a good throw to Herndon. That was should have been a touchdown that was dropped, and he had a few other good plays. He was fine against the Rams, I guess. But, like, that's it. That's the best you have to say for him. He didn't touch, like, the Cowboys game last year, the Giants game, the Raiders game. He had a lot of great performances that you can look at and be like, here's a whole game of him being great. You didn't get one of those this year. So I think that's the biggest thing. Like, yeah, the support's bad, but 2 things can be true at once. He still could have been a lot better within what he could control, and he didn't do that. So it was definitely the right decision to move on. I think they got a good package for him. And I think that another big thing is what you said about getting a quarterback next year. It's not as easy as just like, all right, we'll just trade up next year. You don't know how good the class is going to be. You don't know if a team is going to be willing to let you trade up. And then also, a lot of people talked about trading down this year. If you're going to trade back up next year, you're sort of canceling out the compensation you got from trading down anyway. And you're at number 2. This is a great quarterback class. Wilson and Fields are prospects who deserve to go number 2. They're not just going to be reached on because they're quarterbacks. They actually are that good. And you don't know if you're going to get quarterbacks that good next year. So you have that certainty of you can move on from Darnold, reset the rookie quarterback contract with a guy who deserves to be taken number 2. And it's an opportunity you can't pass on, especially with the new regime coming in, just building a new culture, figuring out who your leader is, and also knowing what kind of quarterback you have so you can build around his skill set going forward. So it was the right move to trade Darnold and take a quarterback, which it looks like they'll do.
And it used to be where GMs would get fired for the wrong top 10 pick. And yeah, they still get hammered for that, but it's kind of reversed. It's the second contract that gets guys fired now, where if you commit multi, huge deals to these quarterbacks and they're not worthy of it, that's what really gets you into trouble. So a 1-year audition for Darnold, what if he throws 24 touchdowns, 16 picks, 3,400 yards in 15 games? What do? Do you resign the guy? Like Nania said,
right? Because that would be such a tough position. Because if you were like, if he did exactly what you said, like that's great improvement, but he's still just okay, and that would be by far the best that he's shown so far. So it's like, oh, like what do we do now? Do you
don't want to be stuck
invest big money into a guy who's, like you said, Kirk Cousins?
Yeah.
Or do we move on from a guy who we're probably going to get knocked for moving on from because he improved so much? So that's just a middle ground position you don't want to be in.
Yeah, and like a lot of people's takes are like, oh, well, how often does the second quarterback in the draft work or the first quarterback in the draft work? Like Russell Wilson was drafted in the 3rd round. It's like, okay, so should we just draft in the 6th round only, like quarterbacks in the 6th round because Tom Brady was drafted there? Like, the Jets it's so easy to find a quarterback. Just draft like your 10th choice and he'll work out. Like that's fine. Like some people's thinking is so flawed on that. And overall, like with the compensation too, like you have to praise, I'm sorry if my voice is a little bit raspy again. I lost my voice in the Devils game. But the compensation, like people were talking about towards the end of like the Sam Darnold era, like, oh, you're going to get like a 3rd round pick. And I know people aren't pumped that it's in next year's draft, but I would argue that, minus people being a little bit impatient, a 2nd round pick, it could be even more valuable next year when you have the combine, when you have more tape to go on, when you have a wider variety of college games to look at the film on, instead of this year, which from the beginning of the college season, after the end of the college season, it was one of those years where people were talking about it being really the biggest crapshoot that it's ever been. So it's not like the Jets need those picks this year. So a 2nd, a 4th, and a 6th, I think are fantastic for him. I appreciate you. JJ Calder said, this is Jets draft having so much knowledge in here, and said we're great at breakdowns. I appreciate that. We'll get into the draft in a little bit. We'll talk about some underrated Jets needs that I don't think a lot of people are discussing. We'll get into all the draft stuff definitely in a little bit, but I think we're all happy with the Darnold trade. Obviously, initially we all were pretty positive on the, the drafting of him, fell to 3, all the stuff that happened at the end of year 1, we were all positive. Year 2 was kind of like not the jump we wanted. And then year 3, it's just, again, make the arguments you want for Adam Gase and all this stuff. We could put up, I'm sure, the 3 of us 100 plays where Darnold was just brutally bad minus coaching, And
listen, I think Darnold could have good seasons. I think he could put up good seasons, especially in Carolina. But again, you want to find the next special guy that could be special. I mean, if Patrick Mahomes was on the Jets this past season, it wouldn't be pretty, but I know he's throwing more than 9 touchdowns.
Right.
Well, yeah. And one thing Nani said, I think it's a good point too, is like, I don't think this is a 2-win roster. Let's just say, with a decent quarterback last year, you have a decent quarterback and you have a decent head coach. The Jets win one of those Patriots games, they win
Chargers,
that Raiders game.
Raiders.
And I think there's anotother game too that I'm not thinking about. Even if they win 2 more games, like it's not a brutally bad roster, like, which we'll get into the roster in a little bit. But Again, I think this team is a little bit further along than some people think they are. Obviously, they have some massive holes that we will get into, but obviously you fire Gase, Darnold's gone. Saleh going through that whole thing with the Jets head coaching search. There were some guys we absolutely hated. And I think after doing some research, I think that we all had Saleh as our number 1, 2, or 3. I think both me and Nania towards the end had Saleh as our number 1 guy. I'm not sure where Sabo was or where he was rated, towards the end of the coaching search for you. But Nania, I'll go back to you first. Overall thoughts on the coaching search. Who were some guys you absolutely did not want? And then obviously you're pretty happy with the Saleh hire, and then talk about some of his staff as well.
Yeah, I absolutely love this hire. He was, like you said, he was my number 1 guy because I think he has the most complete resume of anyone who was in play, just from, looking at who the unit he coached. His defense was great in San Francisco. In 2019, they were dominant. Last year, they were very good, even though he lost everybody: Bosa, Thomas, D Ford, Sherman. And they're still really good. His adaptability was great. He molded the scheme and his philosophies to fit the players he had. Like last year, for example, they blitzed more because they lost all of those guys, even though that wasn't his philosophy at all the previous year. And that shows something that Gase was absolutely not good at, that he's willing to adapt. So that was huge. The staff is a big part of it. LaFleur is very promising young guy with a great background coaching under Shanahan all those years. Did good stuff with that passing game in San Francisco, despite, I think, limited quarterbacks and receivers until last couple of years. They got Adibo and Ayuk, but before that, pretty limited with the receivers, but still got more out of it than they should have. So a good staff. And then just his mentality. Like, I love his tenacity and his energy, but at the same time, he's not Dan Campbell. He's not just a rah-rah guy with the quotes and the toughness and all of that. He also seems like he can relate with players and is able to actually lead in a positive way. He's not just all energy all the time, not one-dimensional in that way. It seems like he knows how to connect and lead in a positive way. So I really think he has the complete package of everything. And in terms of the guys that I didn't want, I felt like this was a pretty strong class of candidates. I guess Joe Brady was a guy I felt like was kind of overrated, in the sense that, what he did in Carolina was great last year, and he'll probably continue to do well. Will be interesting to see what he does with Darnold. But as a head coach at this point, that I didn't
Too early.
see. Yeah.
Yeah, you were a big and you started off as a big Arthur Smith guy.
Yep.
And then I think, just from discussions and like looking into it more, you rode the hype train because like you guys like were the really first to talk about him. And then like once like really peeling back the curtain, you kind of like looked at it, you're like,
like I mean, a big part of that too was Darnold, just because of like the parallels with Tannehill. So that was like early in the season when I was kind of on that train. But then once we got into the search and like I started comparing him to guys like Saleh and guys like all these coaches like Bieniemy and even Brian Dable, I think, like all these guys who have much more complete resumes and even as leaders, I think, bring more to the table. I think that's just the aspect, like pure coordinator leading the offense. Like Arthur Smith is, I think, about as good as it gets. But when you look at him and try to imagine him leading the team, it is a little Gase-esque in terms of just not that anyone's Adam Gase, but just in terms of, I don't really picture him as a leader of a team. Like I watch his Falcons press conferences and it doesn't give the same vibe as Saleh or some of these other coaches, but he can still succeed. Absolutely. You don't have to be an amazing press conference winner to be a great head coach, but he definitely is a little bit not as great of a candidate as I thought initially. Pure on-field great, a little bit more concerned with him leading a whole team.
It was refreshing to see a good, interview with Saleh after the whole Gase thing. It was like watching that initially. Like we already try to hype ourselves up on Gase, and then the whole taco thing. It's just like we're screwed. we knew it. Like it the last 2 years hurt so bad because we all try to justify it, but like we knew what was going to happen. It's like the last 2 years, like we were just sitting in purgatory pretty much. Like we knew that it meant nothing. Some of the guys like Pat Fitzgerald, some people are dropping. I definitely like that. Staley, the DC from the Rams, is a guy I liked. Eberflus is a guy I liked. But yeah, I agree. Like this wasn't a terrible, like there were some guys who I didn't prefer. Guys like Bieniemy. Again, I'm not huge on Bieniemy, but last year or 2 years or 3 years ago, whatever it was now, like Adam Gase, And Mike McCarthy, like two guys I absolutely did not want. But yeah, overall with Saleh, I'm happy with the staff. I'm interested to see how they kind of do some things. I like Ulbrich for sure. In terms of signing LaFleur, I definitely like that. I think people trying to kind of connect him too much with the Niners and don't take enough consideration of what the Packers are doing with his brother. So I think that's something that, again, like people automatically assume like, oh, heavy outside zone. Yes, maybe, but they might also run just as much inside zone, mid zone. And it really depends on, one, the personnel they get, two, the team they're facing. But I feel like they have flexibility where they're not going to just be primary outside zone, no matter what type of team. And I think some people too, with like the blocking schemes with Ben, something I've discussed a little bit too, or not a little bit too much, but something that doesn't get discussed enough, so I try to bring up a lot, is, there's different ways of blocking outside zone. Like every outside zone system is not predicated on, okay, the guy to your play side shoulder, you don't always have to reach him. Benton's a guy who believes on basically taking your initial steps, taking a guy where he wants to go. So you don't need guys who are uber athletic. But at the same token with that, you also see people who are projecting, like, who's a big guy in the draft, like Ben Cleveland, like to the Jets. Like, oh, they can get a guard in the third round. Ben Cleveland, like Ben Cleveland is not a scheme fit. So like, we're going to discuss that stuff in a little bit, but Sabo, what are your thoughts on the overall coaching search, where we ended with Saleh, some guys you didn't like, and some other things we discussed there?
I was on the Campbell or Fitzgerald train early, I think. Looking at it as a, program starter, refresh, reset. The NFL and college are very similar these days. I was anti-college coach 10, 15 years ago. No way. Steve Spurrier, the Steve Spurriers of the world, they just hardly ever worked out. Jimmy Johnson was a rarity. So I was early on them. Then I was kind of, I really wasn't high on any one person after that. Once Saleh got brought up and was in the mix, I fell in love with it. I love the idea, as long as the OC was also comfortable, because the OC was critically important. Listen, you want a football coach. That's basically it. You want a football coach who doesn't have an ego. I mean, a huge deal is Saleh is not calling the defense. Is it a huge deal in terms of who calls the defense? No, but it's a huge deal that he doesn't have the ego where he feels like he has to call the defense. So that's a huge thing for me. Mm-hmm. I love the hire. I love that we did that Stone Cold Saleh video, because the bald head, it was perfect. So for that puts it over the top.
Yeah. No, I'm definitely happy with the hire, and like, again, the connection with Ulbrich, being big like linebackers guys, being from the Seattle system, which again is another thing I think people look a little bit too much into, where it's like, oh, they're automatically going to run cover 3 all the time, right. Which again isn't true. If you look at some of their defensive numbers from last year, I'm going to pull out a Nania here and put some numbers out. Last year at the Niners, cover 1, they ran it 31.8% of the time, which is 23rd in the league. So, and if people think like, oh, they're a zone defense, they don't run any man. Even for one of the lower ranks of the league in terms of man coverage, they ran it 31%. Like that's enough man coverage.
And he blitzed a lot last year. And he's not one to want to blitz, but he blitzed a lot last year
because of the injuries. Yeah. Cover 3, 20% of the time. Like people think, oh, it's gonna be so heavy, and 20% of the time is 16th in the league. Quarters coverage, 18%. Which is 5th highest in the league. Cover 2, 15%, which is 15th in the league. So again, people just think, oh, it's strictly cover 3. Like they're going to run a lot of different defenses. So it's going to be really interesting to see what exactly they do. But again, like what you said, Sab, like I think it's huge in terms of him not needing to call, the defense. Like, in the recent years, the last decade of Jets and their lack of success, it's been accompanied by, one, the reporting system of, equal playing of the head coach, GM, the coach, whether it be offensive, defense, would only really aid to that side of the ball. And now Saleh comes in, they change the reporting structure, and now Saleh is managing all sides of the football team. And like Nani said, like too, like I think he's a guy who players respect too. Like one of the first things he says in his interviews is like, listen, like I know why these guys are here. Like I'm here to make them money. Like that's why they're playing football. Like they want their money. But like, so I think it's a good culture that the Jets are going to build. I know that's probably a phrase that's probably overused at times, but it's still something you should not undervalue. But moving on from that, I think we're all pretty happy with the Saleh hire. But next up is talking about some of the free agents that the Jets brought in. which again, I thought was pretty overall good. We'll go through some of the signings. Some of the guys, like the linebacker they just signed, I don't even know his name, so we're not going to do that. Like the linebacker, and I think they signed an offensive lineman too. I'm sure Nania put out some numbers on who like didn't even play a snap last year and it was like cut by the Patriots practice squad or whatever. But we'll go through the bigger signings that the Jets made and give them some letter grades. I want to see some people in the chats letter grades as well. Appreciate all the 145 people in here. Carmelo says he loves Sabo stuff. We appreciate that. Keep following JetX. We just started. We're gonna we added some good guys to our roster, and we're gonna keep killing it. So moving on though, Jared Davis. Sabo, throw it to you first. Went to Nani a couple times first. What is your grade on that, and what are your thoughts on the signing? I can pull some of the numbers. I think he's like 1 year, 5.5 million, up to 7 million with incentives. I think.
Yep, I believe that's it.
With Douglas, a lot of fans killed him because the appearance was he wasn't spending a lot of money, and that couldn't be further from the truth. I think they finished third, not finished. Yes. Free agency is still going on, but they're ranked third in terms of guaranteed money dished out. That's big time. He spent money. He just did it in a smart way. He didn't kill himself like McCagnon would do. He didn't allow the Jets to be the team everyone used to make more money. For that, you're going to lose some guys. They didn't nail down Tooney or Lindsley, but by all indications, he went hard for Tooney. He signed with the Chiefs. What are you going to do? Davis, I think I gave him a B-, if I'm looking at the graphic we did recently. Mm-hmm. He fits in with the other theme too, which is young guys, 26, 27 years old, coming off that rookie deal, who didn't exactly fulfill their draft slot. Him, Corey Davis, high first round picks in general, they really didn't fulfill that slot. So even though there's talent, there's upside, the team wanted to move on because they didn't meet the criteria which they expected. And that's the value Douglas is trying to capture. So for that, I'll give it a B-. Right now on paper, he's expected to fill the Sam. Blewett did a review on it. B-. Try to stay in the middle there with Jared Davis.
What about you, Nani?
Yeah, I think for me, this is probably my least favorite in terms of, other than the backup signings like the offensive lineman and the linebacker they signed, other than those guys, of the key signings, probably my least favorite. Not in that he can't contribute to the team, because I think if he does, take that Sam role where he's just playing about 30%, a third of the snaps, and he's, playing a role where just his physical tools can shine and they don't ask him to think too much, then he can actually play well. And he had an improved season last year. He just didn't play as much because it was in that smaller role where he's playing better, not as a starter. If he is going to end up starting for them, that's a problem, but I think they are going to find a starter at some point in the draft. But the thing with this one is that there are guys who I thought were going to get pretty huge deals who were worthy, very good starters like Jayon Brown, Nicholas Morrow, even Eric Wilson, who were some of the top coverage linebackers in the league last year. And they got about the same cost deal for 1 year, and as Davis did. So that was really surprising to me how cheap a lot of those guys went for, even though they were not only, Davis didn't even start last year, but these guys were starting and they were high level coverage guys. And they're all in their prime too, all those guys I mentioned. So I'm very surprised at how cheap those guys went. And the fact that Davis got just as much of them kind of makes him look like a worse value. So for that reason, I don't like it as much. If you told me before free agency that the Jets would sign Davis for just as much on a 1 year deal as Jayon Brown or Nicholas Morrow got, then that would not be something I would like. So this one, honestly, is not one of my favorites. Again, he can contribute to the team in the right role. But in terms of the linebacker approach, like there are guys who could have slid right in and been huge upgrades and good starters next to Mosley, who got pretty much the same money as Davis did. So for that reason, I don't love this one too much. So I'd give it probably solid C.
Yeah, I gave it a C+, or I think it's a C+ or a B-, but I'll say it's a C+. Again, I think some people, I think they automatically assume he's going to be a Sam. I think he could play Sam or Will, to be completely honest. Either position you think a little bit less, whether that be, taking advantage of his sideline ability as a Will. Again, you have to be a little bit more patient in terms of maintaining your gaps in the backside of runs, which he necessarily isn't the strongest at. But at the same time, as a Sam, you have to diagnose a little bit more in terms of blockers coming at you, what shoulder, whether to spill or squeeze the run. Like there's a lot of things you have to kind of figure out, on the edge right there. So there are things that both go for either position that he plays on the defense and go against, again. But if you're gonna have him think a little bit less, man coverage. I think he's the best blitzing linebacker the Jets have right now. Something that people overrate a little bit with Mosley is his blitzing ability. He's not a good blitzer in my mind.
That's one thing Mosley really isn't that good at. Probably one of the only things.
Yeah, good in coverage, good in diagnosing the run game, good click and close, like all of that stuff. He's good at man coverage, but he's just not very strong in terms of like as a blitzer. So I think Davis can fill that role. Again, man coverage, blitzing, penetrating a gap. You don't want him to play in a 3-4 defense where you're having to diagnose a little bit more, but as a 4-3 attacking type of linebacker, I think he could fit. But like you said, Nania, I just in terms of like the guys who are out there, like the Jalen Browns and the Moros, who went for less money. I don't necessarily hate the Davis signing, but I would have liked to have seen it accompanied by at least one of those guys if you're going to bring in Davis, because they're a little bit more reliable in my mind. But at the same time, it's one of those signings where like you look at it and it's funny how like similar it is to the Fant signing, where like everybody was expecting a big name. Like we wanted Tooney. Again, kill him for Tooney if you want, but Tooney went to the defending Super Bowl or 2 years ago, but the back-to-back Super Bowl teams, or they went to back-to-back Super Bowls, I should say. He went there for a lot of money, whatever. We wanted Lindsley. Douglas apparently either doesn't want an older player, even though he's not that old, or just doesn't want to kick over McGovern to guards. So I got that. But this being the first signing, again, people were pretty down on it. And I kind of went to the film review and I was like, I'm hoping this is a Fant situation, because I might be wrong on a lot of stuff, but I think Fant, like I watched that last year and I was one of the first people to say that I actually like that signing in general. But I went to Davis's film review and I was not as high on Davis as I was on Fant. So we'll see what happens with.
Really quick on Fant with LaFleur in the wide zone. Do you think it'll fit him better this year? I mean, obviously we don't know what the offense is going to look like, but are you hopeful it's going to fit him even better?
Yeah. Yeah, because the Jets they ran a lot of mid zone last year. Like they're like a mid zone, inside zone heavy team, I would say. So the more outside zone they run, I think it will be better for Fant, because he's uber athletic. Like he played some tight end. So I think it would fit him because of his foot speed. But that outside zone, and it depends. Like you can mix it up from like side to side. Like if you're going to run more to the right, maybe you want to run more outside zone, depending on the team you play. But if you're running to the left, you could argue, and I would say that Becton's a better fit for inside zone, mid zone than he is for outside zone, because while Becton, he's great, in terms of movement skills for a guy who's 360, he's still 360. Like, but yeah, I think it's a good sign. Again, Fant is a guy who I think people crushed, and I was hoping to be the same for Davis, but I'm gonna get like a C+. We'll see how that turns out. But with Ulbrich and with Saleh on the team, like if there's one position this team should know, we're hoping it's linebacker. So that gives you some positivity. Moving on to the next signing, which was 3 years, $37 million. They can get out after 2 years and save $10 million, I believe, on that last year, the deal with Corey Davis. What are your guys' grades for that? Overall thoughts of the player, et cetera. Sabo, go with you first this time.
I went with an A-, and I admit it took me a little bit for me to get this grade a little higher. I was all over Samuel. I wanted Samuel. I wanted that guy who could assume jet motion duties. They haven't had that guy in so long. But again, I don't know what LaFleur's thinking. I don't know what he's planning. You want the outside threat opposite Mims, but I wanted Samuel. How that fits in with Crowder was the tricky part. I don't think it necessarily means they couldn't play together. I mean, look at the Chiefs. They got little guys running all over the place. It's a new NFL. But having said that, you can't complain with Corey Davis. He's an excellent blocker. From all reports, he's a hard worker. He's a no-nonsense guy. He can go up and get it. I saw some of the route stuff that you did with his film. It looks pretty good. I think it could even be better. So again, young, high potential. He didn't meet that expectation as the 5th overall pick. It was a shock at the time. Instead of Mike Williams or who was it? John Ross, I think. So A-.
What about you?
Yeah, for me, I think I'll go with the solid A. In hindsight, I don't know why I wasn't pushing this one more, because he makes a lot of sense as a fit with this team. With the run blocking, I think is really important, because we saw it in San Francisco that it's a very, and again, like we'll see what kind of run scheme that they do employ, whether it's more like San Francisco or Green Bay. But no matter who you are, run blocking at the skill positions is important, and the Jets have suffered from that a lot in recent years. Pretty much none of their receivers, other than maybe Mims, has been great as a blocker. And you lose a lot of yards in the run game from that. So that's important. He's good with that. And it should be important in this offense. And he also comes from a Tennessee offense that ran a lot of play action. And he was one of the most efficient receivers on play action plays over the past couple of years. So that makes him a fit as well. He was one of the best receivers last year in the league in terms of various things, contested catches. He was near the top of the league. And just his overall efficiency. I believe he had the best percentage in the league in terms of the percentage of his targets that were first downs or touchdowns. So he had a great season last year. He wasn't their go-to guy. Obviously, that was A.J. Brown. So we'll see how he'll fare as the go-to guy in a different offense, which we assume he'll be with Mims as that number 2. So that is the question mark for me. Like, can he be that number 1 guy? Can he thrive outside of Tennessee, where they had an amazing run game, amazing offensive line, a lot of different things working to sort of make things easier for him? But he fits in a lot of different ways, between the play action, the run blocking, the intermediate game. He was one of the best intermediate receivers in the league. The contested catches, which I think is very important for a young quarterback to have contested catch guys, because it just helps your confidence to have guys who you could throw the ball up to and feel like they can come down with the football. They have that in Mims. They have that in Davis. Keelan Cole's pretty good at it too. So that's definitely a confidence booster for a young quarterback. So there's a lot of different reasons I think he fits. We'll see how well he translates being number 1 guy outside Tennessee. But I think the biggest thing is that, like, with your film review really shows it well, is that he didn't necessarily just rack up numbers. Like, you would think that he sort of did that playing in that offense, but like, he's a good route runner and he has good hands and good catching technique. So he is, last year we finally saw what the Titans hoped they were getting when they drafted him top 5 back in 2017. So I definitely like this one, and it's not a crazy price either. I believe he's around 15th to 20th in most contract numbers, whether it's average per year, guarantees, things like that. So for a 26-year-old guy, that is not crazy at all. Who just averaged 70 yards a game last year. Not a crazy price to me. So I like this one.
Yeah, a guy who probably would have got 1,000 yards if he played 16 games.
Yeah.
And I think some of like the issues with his hands was more from him pressing at the end of the season. Like those last 2 games against the Packers and the Texans, you could see that he was really looking to run with the ball before he caught it. So I just think he really wanted that 1,000 yards. So he doesn't have those issues. But there are valid questions like, can he win vertically? Like, he's not a guy who ran a lot of 9 routes, who had like contested balls over the middle on a dig or on a deep out or like a Dover, like they like to call it in the Shanahan system. It's a little bit bended, like almost like a speed out. Like, those are different than over the shoulder winning vertical. So can he do that? Like, who's going to play the X? Who's going to play the Z? Like, those are questions, because, and there are ways to get off of, get a guy who's not good in Mims in terms of getting off of press coverage, at least right now, get him off of the line of scrimmage while still playing that X role. Like, X doesn't necessarily, technically, like, you have to be split end, whatever, stupid. But who's gonna be that vertical receiver? Is it Mims or is it him? There's a question of like, okay, he's the number 1 now. Can he be that number 1? Best year of his career last year. I feel like he's like a low end number 1, really high end number 2. But I still think for the price you got him for, $12.5 million or $12 million. Look at our division foes, Nelson Aguilar for 12.5. Like, those contracts are not even similar in terms of value. And Sable, what you said before, like, in terms of like wanting Samuel, there's a few things that I think about that. One, if they're looking to the draft this year, it's loaded with guys in the 3rd, 4th round, 5th round who are like those yak type guys. So maybe they look at that.
Those guys, for sure.
Yeah, there's not a lot of bigger guys. And something that I thought, that we brought up in the stream that was good, was the fact that, well, like, 2 things. One, he's a guy who is not like a boisterous guy, like give me the ball, Michael Irving type, and that's going to help a young guy. He's a big body who doesn't really, is a good run blocker, which again with this offenses, you don't have a lot of tight ends. So, and you need tight ends to run outside zone. That's how they did it with the 49ers. So can they run more outside zone from 11 personnel? Because now you have a guy like Davis and Mims crack blocking, outside linebackers or defensive ends or safeties. I think that's a possibility. So I think he fits the offense that way. And then with presumably, Zach Wilson, or presumably Zach Wilson, when I say that word, he's a guy who is like a gunslinger type. So you want those bigger bodied receivers for a guy who likes to make plays like that outside the pocket and will chuck some balls up that maybe he shouldn't. So I think he's a great fit for a young guy, especially Zach Wilson in that way too. So I'm going to give it an A-. I really like him, as well. We all give him some pretty positive grades. The next signing, which I think is all of Jets fans' favorite signing, I know Nania, which we'll kick it to him first on this one, was a huge proponent of signing him even before they signed him. Carl Lawson, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think this one's just an A+. I mean, no signing's perfect. Obviously, he's had injury questions, and that's really the main thing. He's not a great run defender, but the Jets got a 26-year-old guy who was 4th among edge rushers and pressures last year for, again, not a ridiculous price. In that same range as Davis in terms of like top 10 to 15 at his position. So this is as good as it gets, honestly, in terms of free agency to get an elite player in his prime for a price that's not out of this world, who fills a need that has been one of the biggest needs on your team at a premium position. He's a good scheme fit. There's really nothing not to like with this one. He's been an efficient pass rusher his whole career. He just, he missed a lot of games. His rookie season, he didn't have a big role. They weren't playing him too often. So he never put up huge numbers in terms of totals. But this year he was healthy. They were starting him, and he put up those big numbers. But his whole career, he's been just as efficient as he was this year. So you can feel confident he's going to continue to do that going forward. So there's hardly anything not to like about this one. It's an amazing signing. I'm still so thrilled that they got him.
What about you?
Yeah, I mean, A+. How often, we go into every free agency with a list of edge players available. And by the time free agency rolls around, they've all been franchise tagged or gobbled up. How often does a guy like Lawson become available to sign? Not often. And this is the first guy, really, the first signing since they drafted John Abraham, where you feel like there's a legitimate edge presence. Whether that comes to fruition, we'll have to see. But it's a rarity to get a guy like this young. And then the price is good too. Like Nania said, the price is good. So because it's so rare, and it actually happened and unpackaged so perfectly, it's an A+ by far.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it like an A, just because like I think what takes away from that plus is, like Nania said, with the injuries, like that's a question. So maybe that knocks it down again. That from a plus to just an A. The run defense, again, I would say it's average. I think the Jets will get gashed on a couple of run plays this year, even though like they're obviously still a good defensive line, but like having a guy like Rankins, Lawson, Frank Lamarcus, like not a great run guy, like that might be not even necessarily a weakness, but definitely not as much of a strength as
yeah. I was thinking about that earlier. Like, I don't know if this team's going to be as dominant against the run as they usually are, but if you're a top 10 run defense, but now like a top 3 pass rush, then it really doesn't matter.
Yeah. I think we all would rather have the pass rush of being the strength of the defensive line. Like, the defensive line was great in 20, our 2009, 2010, even like 2015 with like Wilkerson and Sheldon, like before that with guys like, Chris Jenkins, but they couldn't get to the quarterback. So they're great at run defense, but you also had Tom Brady sitting in the pocket for 7 seconds. But with Lawson too, like it's a great signing. Like just again, all of us watch the film, just go on a YouTube highlight and see how many times he missed a sack because there was no interior pressure and the quarterback just stepped up in the pocket, hitched and stepped up away from the pressure. So with the Jets defense, you step up into the pocket. You have Quentin Williams, Franklin Myers, Sheldon Rankins, maybe even Vinny Curry. I know he could flex in a 3-tech a little bit too. I doubt it with the strength of the defensive line being in an interior like that, but it's an option. So Lawson's great in terms of pressures, all those numbers that Nania puts out consistently. And the film backs it up too. Like he's a top-notch pass rusher. So the Jets haven't had that again since Abraham. What was that, 2006? I think he left the Jets. It's been quite a while. So the next signing in order, again, this is something I think after the Lawson signing, it was like 2-3 days. They didn't sign anybody. And then the next signing, they were like, people are like, what the hell? This is bullshit. Like this bad signing. But Justin Hardy, I guess I'll hit it first because it's not really something to go like too deep into unless one of you guys watched the film on Hardy. I don't know if you did.
I actually did a little bit.
So Nania can talk about it, but
yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I think it's an A signing. Listen, you got a guy who is clearly a good locker room guy. Everybody hyped him up, even from the Saints when he left. All the players were sad to let him go. The Jets coverage unit sucked last year. He's one of the best coverage guys in the league. You gave him like $1.5 million, or I think it was like $1.5 million, $2 million for like 2 years or whatever it was. Maybe it was like $3 million. I forget exactly, but a low cost signing, good locker room guy, a key special teamer, one of the best in the league for a special teams unit. That sucked. But Nani, you watched some of it, so go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the best special teams punt coverage guys in the league in terms of his tackle numbers, but like he makes impressive plays. Like he's not just gang tackling, just happening to be there. Like he's an amazing gunner. He beats the blockers easily at the line, sort of like, he's running a go route line of scrimmage. He'll swat the hands down and get around them with the ease. And then he's great speed and he finishes the tackles by himself as soon as the catch is made. Consistently, he does it. So he's really good. Punt coverage was a big problem for the Jets last year. If it weren't for Braden Mann being insane at tackling, they would have given up 3 touchdowns. And they already gave up plenty of yardage in addition to that. So they were really bad at punt coverage. And he's one of the best players in the league at punt coverage. So another... Like many of these signings that they made, the smaller ones, they're knocking out a lot of weaknesses that they had, whether it was tight end blocking with Croft or, who we'll talk about, receiving at running back with Coleman, just like small specific weaknesses they're knocking out with these guys. And punt coverage with Hardy is one of them. And he's obviously a great locker room culture guy as well, which is another consistent thing with these players. So I really like the Hardy signing.
It just depressed me. I was going to ask Nania, did you watch him on kickoffs? But then I realized kickoffs don't matter in today's league. What's the point?
Yeah, I missed the Leon Washington days, Justin Miller.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know when it's going to happen, but pretty soon they'll just get rid of the kickoffs. That's just the way it's going.
Start at the 25.
Yeah, start with the 25, exactly. But Hardy, yeah, I think it's a great signing too. I gave it an A as well. I mean, it's under the radar. No one's going to care, but it's huge. Being that gunner, it's not easy. It is not easy. So I like what he brings. I like that it's a special team specific signing. And I know Nania loves that. The only thing that would be better in his world is a kicker or Locke Edwards suddenly, kicking for them.
Designated holder. How about that?
Yeah. What if Locke Edwards figured out how to kick and then he's the kicker and Braden Mann's the punter? Nania would go nuts. But yeah, Hardy, not much to say, just a good signing.
Yeah, and something I didn't mention, I see the super chat in there. We'll mention that in a second. But the one thing I didn't mention the Lawson signing too is like some of these with some of these rushers too, like looking at their numbers and kind of their film a little bit, like guys like Judon, like I didn't really want, and there's some guys I feel like were really overrated. Judon, Dupree, like some of these. Like again, Lawson was great for the price, but yeah, the Hardy thing again, I already touched it, but people won't love it because you go to Google, you type in Justin Hardy stats, and you don't see anything really there. But special teams is a huge part of the game. Like, listen, like last year we were all mad at Braden Mann for making that tackle against the Rams. But if we were actually competing for a playoff
like
spot,
imagine you had Braden Mann in the Eagles game in 2015 that the Jets lost by 1 touchdown. Darren Sproles returns a punt. Imagine Braden Mann makes that tackle and Jets win that game. They go to the playoffs.
Or Justin Hardy, So
Exactly.
like people might hate that last year because we wanted to lose, but when we actually want to win games, a guy like Justin Hardy is a big signing. Like, even if it just takes the return average from the punters from whatever, 10 yards to 8, like that makes a difference in today's NFL. It just does. So we're going to hit this question really quick. The $5 super chat from Joe Pekulik. Maybe that's how you say that name. That's my pronunciation for it. We appreciate it. He says, love your content, guys. Saw a trade rumor with Cleveland where we swapped 23 and 26. So 26 and Njoku for 23. Would we like that trade? And do we still think he has that upside, or do we still think he has upside?
I guess it would depend on who's on the board when you're up, because only a 3-spot drop isn't too much. And I think Njoku still does have upside. I mean, he's had some years in the league now and he hasn't put it together. And I think most of these guys who, are former first round picks and, have all the physical tools, but are this deep into their careers and haven't put it together yet, usually don't. But only 3-spot drop. Like if there's 4 players they feel really good about, then maybe. But like if you're there and like, because I think interior O-line is the top priority. So like say Vera Tucker is there, which probably won't happen, but say he is, or you have another offensive lineman you like, but there's only one of them. Then at that point, like, just take your offensive lineman, or if they're prioritizing something else. But, if it's a spot where like all the O-linemen are gone, all the corners are gone, but there's like a couple edge rushers you like, a couple linebackers, then, 3 spots for Njoku, I guess.
What's that on the trade value chart? Does anybody know? Like, what is that? Like a 4th round pick, maybe?
I'd have to look at it. I'll check that out. You guys talk about it a little bit.
Yeah. I don't know. So again, like I like to preface things by saying like I don't really know certain players. Like how often do we watch David Njoku? Like,
right.
Can he block?
Does he block? If he can't block, he's not a fit. So do we really want to give up? Like what I would say is probably what, like on a trade value chart, like a 3rd round pick,
60 points.
So
yeah.
So what is that, like a 3rd round pick ish, 4th round pick? I personally think it's too much.
Yeah, it'd be like a mid 4th round pick.
Yeah, I think that's too much for a guy who hasn't really proven a lot with the Browns. Like they signed a bunch of other, or not a bunch of other, but they signed who's the old Falcons, Austin Hooper, to kind of take more of the snaps away from Njoku. So I wouldn't be down for it. Again, if he's a great blocker and like we watched his film and he was really great, like really greatly underrated, maybe, but I think like a 4th-ish round pick for a guy who hasn't really succeeded is a little bit too much for me. Now, like if you weren't getting any trade offers you really like to move down, and like Nania said, like a bunch of guys that the Jets like are off the board, then maybe you just do it. But I think that's probably a little bit too much. Moving on though, the other free agency signings again, we appreciate. I know there's a lot of questions you guys are asking here. Like people are talking about who do we feel, who do we see filling the Kyle Juszczyk role?
I would say I can't say his name either. Don't worry about it.
Juszczyk.
Yeah, just Juszczyk.
It's almost like I know how to pronounce it, but when I look at the spelling of it, it really just like screws with my mental.
Off.
You did it way better than me. Trust me.
Juszczyk. So I think it's a combination of Croft and Wesco, mostly. I think Wesco, and I think Nania has written an article on this, or at least mentioned it in the past. I think in terms of like being that H-back fullback role, he's underrated. Like he had some good blocks last year, for sure. And Croft is also good in that role. So I think it's gonna be a mixture of both of those guys. I would say Croft's gonna see the field more than Wesco because he offers a little bit more on the receiving end. So Juszczyk was a great blocker, but he also ran wheel routes and was a threat in the passing game too. So I think it's going to be Croft more. But again, sorry if we don't see some questions, but again, super chats, we will get to them right away.
And whoever your second tight end is in the 12 personnel, he's got to block. He has to.
We have another super chat from A. Mitch. He says the BS continues as Jets are knocked for trading Sam and getting a return, but no flack for Chicago and Trubisky. Thoughts on biased media when it comes to the Jets, or when it's the Jets? What are your thoughts on that, Sabo? You're definitely like, you're plugged into like the narratives and the stories. Like you're good at discussing these type of things.
No flack for Chicago with Trubisky. I mean, listen, it's, you know why that is. And Chicago is a tough example because they have passionate fans too, but whenever
that's your team. That's
your, I was just going to say, that's his new team.
Whenever you see the Jets get singled out, it's, the fan base gives a reaction. That's what the media wants. In this new social media age, when you generate topics.
Back in my day.
Yeah. I'm older than 38. Holy crap, man. Look at my hair. It's just, I feel like I'm 80 inside.
At least you still have hair.
True.
It's better than being bald.
True. Because I got a weird shaped head too. It's like a pointy cone head.
We'll see in a couple of years, I'm sure.
I don't know what I'm going to do. But
wear a hat.
Yeah, I'm going to be a hat guy again.
But be like Saleh. Can make Stone Cold Sabo.
True. I'm going to have to beef up though, hit the weight room.
I feel like it wouldn't look as good on you because you're a little bit more pale than Saleh.
A little bit, just a little bit.
He looks like The Rock, where you look like I don't really know who's a pale bald guy.
Bill Burr.
Yeah. Hey,
There we
Bill,
go.
he's funny though.
Yeah, Bill Burr's
But okay,
the man.
continue. So like,
It's generating a reaction, whether it's overwhelmingly positive or overwhelmingly negative. That's what it's designed
to go at the Jets fans.
Yes. And why didn't you hear about, early in the season with Trevor Lawrence, you heard all these stories, why Lawrence should reject the Jets, why this, why he should do that, because that'll get traction. That'll get the clicks. That'll get the traffic. You won't hear on the Jags side when that flipped because the 9 Jags fans won't generate that traffic. It's just that's just the way it works in today's new world.
Mm-hmm.
So when you and Chicago fans experience it too. So Chicago might be a rough example, but I understand what he's saying with Trubisky. But that's what needs to be in the back of your mind when you see that bias.
Yeah, like you said, it just generates your reaction. Like a lot of these guys, they're not like, and I think that's a reason like JetX was really like created. To be honest, like we wanted to really kind of get into the nitty gritty and like give fans what they deserve. Where a lot of other sites care about, which we care about obviously too. Like clicks matter, but we want to get clicks for different reasons. Where other people get clicks for stupid takes, like they're bullshit takes, like, but as long as it generates clicks, that's their job. Like they don't care about being credible and putting out smart, good takes. They care about, again, getting paid, getting the clicks. So that's why, the Jets get crushed a lot. Because again, you have Jets fans who are angry, they're passionate, they're going to quote tweet you, they're going to call out your bullshit. But it still gets them to their end result, which is clicks. So that's really the reason. None of anything to add on to that?
Yeah, I think you pretty much summed it up. And I think another thing is that like fans will always, if you're a fan of a bad team, your team just has that reputation. They're going to get knocked. And I mean, every team does at some point, even successful teams, but the Jets haven't made the playoffs in 10 years. They're going to get criticized. They're going to get treated like a team that doesn't do anything right because for the most part, they don't.
For
and
sure.
it seems like that things are trending in the right direction, but it also has seemed like that before, so we don't know. And until they officially, change the way that they should be looked at by people around the world, then they're going to continue to be treated as a joke because that's frankly what they've been. Even though most of it is off base, like you guys said, like they're just when bad teams are going to attract more takes like that just because of the reputation they have. So the Jets need to play themselves out of that.
You have to prove it first.
Right.
But yeah, again, it's their job to get clicks. Like I could go out there and I might lose some Twitter followers, but I guarantee I'll get a lot of engagements, saying something like, what's a hot take in Jets land right now? Like, oh, the Jets should draft a running back at 23. Like there's gonna be people who agree with it. There's also people who are completely against it. So there's going to be a lot of interaction with that. And it's going to create a lot of, traffic for our website, like things like that. But we're not going to do that. That's not why people are here, I don't think. But so you're getting some comments about Sabo looking good, he's looking thin, looking like Tom Brady, all this stuff. I
needed that boost today. I was a little down, but
I do want to see you bald though. It's gonna happen.
That would be a disaster.
We're in it for the long run, us three. So we're gonna see you bald.
If the Jets make the playoffs, he'll shave on the live stream.
It's funny. I get like one gray hair, like right here. Right I get one gray hair and it bothers me. Yeah, one gray hair.
Blewett's vein? Blewett's that vein? No.
Yeah, but we'll see. Okay, so next signing, Keelan Cole. Another one that I think we've talked about is underrated. And again, like, listen, I know a lot of these signings we've kind of talked about like being really good. We didn't give Gerard Davis a good grade, but I think people know we try to be pretty like transparent and be honest. And I think a lot of these signings we all really like for like legitimate reasons. Keelan Cole, what, $5-ish million a year? A guy who I just did his whole film review. I got to put it out. I'll put it out probably after the draft, but good routes, good at contested catches, is a willing blocker. I think his technique is good in blocking, but in terms of like his size, sometimes he will get blown up a little bit. His contested catches, again, if it's against a smaller guy, fine. If you're playing a guy like Richard Sherman, he might not win that contested ball. But overall, like you're looking at a guy who's always on the field, is consistent, is a good route runner, is good at finding open grass, good at scramble drills. So he has a lot of positives. And again, you're looking at a guy who last year got 55 catches, 655 yards, was playing with Gardner Minshew. What is it, Luton or Jake Walton, or was it Luton? Is that his name?
Yep, and Glennon.
Yeah, and Glennon, and he was there was reps he was open. So as a fourth receiver, show me other fourth receivers in the NFL that are. I'm not saying he's the best fourth receiver in the NFL, but I would argue he's top 5 to 10. And I don't think we're over. Like there's some people that Jets fans definitely overhype. Like I've been pretty outward in saying like Marcus May, I think he's a little bit overhyped. Bless Austin after a couple of decent games in 2019, overhyped. Like there's guys who are overhyped. Keelan or even Brian Poole at times a little bit overhyped. But Keelan Cole, fourth receiver for the Jets, $5 million. You're looking at last year, we had guys, or even just the last couple of years, guys like Greg Salas playing and Hogan and like all these guys, Lawrence Cager last year. And now you have a guy who's injured or just to spell for 30% of the game. Keelan Cole, I think, is top notch. So I'm going to give it an A. I really like that signing. What about you, Nania?
Yeah, I agree. I like this one a lot. Like you're talking about your fourth receiver here. For your fourth receiver to be a guy who, like you said, put up decent production in Jacksonville with bad quarterbacks, has never missed a game. I think that's important too. Anytime you can get a guy with that sort of durability. A guy who brings a lot to the table. Blocking is pretty good, like you said. I think he's probably the best deep threat they have of these guys. I mean, we'll see how Mims develops that. I
would say Mims just because he contested.
He definitely has that potential, but in terms of like the speed, he's probably their best guy. Good contested guy, not necessarily on jump balls, but on those balls over the middle, he's pretty good with those.
Yeah.
As your fourth receiver, this is, like you said, about as good as it gets. Like we've had guys like Vincent Smith, Lawrence Cager, Andre Roberts was playing like not even wide receiver 4. Like he was your 2 or 3 at times in 2018
against the Bears too. That game that Andre Roberts played a lot of snaps.
Yeah, that's the one that came to mind. That was really ugly, but like they've had like not NFL caliber players as their fourth receiver. Cole's a guy who's been, I mean, he shouldn't be anyone's wide receiver 2, probably not even their 3, but as a 4, again, like you said, probably top 5 to 10 in terms of wide receiver 4s in the league, which speaks to the depth they have at that position right now. So I like the signing quite a bit.
I think he's like a decent number 3, to be honest. Like if he plays 50-60% of the snaps, I think he's decent. Like I think in a good offense, a pass heavy offense, again, not with Luton and Glennon and Minshew throwing the ball. Like he got, again, like 600 yards. Could he get like 700-800 as your third? Like that's pretty productive. So I'm happy with it. Sabo, what do you think about the signing?
Yeah, I mean, listen, undrafted, workman-like. Is he top flight fast, like straight line fast? I don't know, but he's a solid deep threat. Really nice backup on the outside. I kind of separate him and Berrios. Berrios is the number 2 behind Crowder, and then you got Cole and Vincent Smith on the outside. So
I think Cole could play everywhere, to be honest.
Yeah, that's another thing. He's versatile. He's played everywhere. So
yeah, slot Z, X, he plays everywhere. So I think that's good versatility. Like especially at that backup, like
tremendous.
Whoever you have to spell, you could do it.
Right. And he's like Berrios is your 4th receiver last year, probably even higher than that sometime, but he's a slot guy. You're not going to put him on the outside at X, Z, things like that.
Fills they didn't have last year.
Right.
Yeah. And again, he's not overly fast. I think he has some good acceleration. There are some again, I'll get into the film review of him. He definitely does a lot of good things with the route running. He's a decent deep threat, but in terms of Mims hones in his route running, especially at the line of scrimmage, which is something I have some faith in that he will do, because go back to his film at Baylor. Go back to his film of the Senior Bowl, like he was dominating at the line. Like it's something that didn't translate necessarily, but it's not because of the technique. It's because of more of the mindset. Like I think he was rushing his releases where he just wanted to get into the route instead of being a little more patient at the line. So it's something he can do. It's just didn't have a preseason, didn't play a lot of games. Like he'll get there.
Next level thing.
Yeah. He'll get there. But in terms of contested catchability deep, like Mims is that guy. Like we saw some plays he made last year, specifically with Joe Flacco, because Joe Flacco threw the ball deep. Whereas again with Sam Darnold, he didn't really see him as much, or just check the ball down too soon, whatever. We've went over those problems with Darnold. But moving on to the next signing, probably all of our least favorite, Dan Feeney. I'm going to give it a D plus, C minus. The only thing I'll say with this is, listen, he's bad, but and something a phrase I kind of go back to, there's a difference between a really bad starter and a really bad backup. Like I'd rather have Dan Feeney as a backup who's had a lot of starter experience than guys like Josh Andrews. And even Jonathan Harrison. So if you're expecting him to be a starter, brutal signing. But if he's a backup, it's an okay backup. So I get the move, but it's not something that's overly exciting. So
Yeah, Feeney gets a D for his play, but an A for the mullet. And that's pretty much all I'll say.
We're going on a lot of hair stuff. By the way, I saw something in the chat. Are you dyeing your hair green if the Jets make the playoffs? I don't think it's happening this year, but in the next 2 years, will you dye your hair green?
Green. Holy shit. Who said that in the chat?
Green. I don't know. It was somewhere on the top. I'll scroll up. I would do it, but my profession, I don't think my work would appreciate me dyeing my hair green. I just don't.
Yeah. You definitely can't do it. That's for sure.
No.
If they win the Super Bowl, I'll go green.
Well, you get a Dan Feeney mullet.
If they win back-to-back Super Bowls, I'll get
if they win back-to-back, you could shave it right after. I forget. Somebody said it. Whoever said it in the chat, drop it again. But I remember somebody said in the chat. But so we're expecting it. I would say playoffs, to be honest. You know, it's just like, who do you have to impress?
That's too. I mean, listen. You know, you can get horrified looking in the mirror. It happens. So Super Bowl. I'm gonna leave it at a high benchmark because
hopefully
crazy
at
things
that point you have
happen.
hair.
You know.
Next signing, Lamarcus Joyner. Sabo, we'll go to you, Sabo. We'll kick it to you first. Overall thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, Lamarcus Joyner, you got to like it for the versatility. The way I look at Saleh's defense right now is safeties. It's not as rigid as Greg Williams. Greg Williams clearly defined his safeties. Jamal Adams was in the box. Marcus May was high. And when Jamal Adams was gone, you saw it early in Buffalo this past season. May was low, and McDougal was high. I don't think Saleh goes that. You know, a lot of quarters defense. He even rotates the safeties high and low depending on formation, which fits May, which fits Ashton Davis, and fits Joyner too, in my opinion. Couple bad seasons out of the slot, playing corner, which I don't expect him doing this year unless they're big nickel and he's got an assignment where he has to. So I'll go B+ with Joyner.
Yeah, I think I'll agree with the B+. It's not great enough to go over that, but it's still a really solid move. I think when he was playing safety with the Rams a few years ago, I believe 2017 to 18, he was really good. He had some of the best numbers at safety in the league, especially tackling. He had very few missed tackles, which is something this defense really needs. They had way too many missed tackles last year. So he's very good at safety. He just went to the Raiders, and, you know, the Raiders' decisions with their defense are not necessarily good. I think we all know that. And they played him in the slot, and he wasn't good. And they just continued to do it instead of playing him at his position of strength. So moving back to safety, he should, if he can get back to that Rams level, be a well above average starter, which is what he was. So like you said, Robbie, I think that in this defense, you're going to see a lot more sort of interchangeability with the safeties in the sense that, you know, it's not just going to be this guy's in the box, this guy's deep. I think, you know, you'll see a lot of 2 deep, and you'll see a lot of even, you know, situations where you'll have 3 safeties on the field. So having another good safety into the mix is important, I think.
Yeah, I like it a lot, to be honest. Like, this is another one I think that's not getting talked about enough. I would give it a B+, like A-, because again, minimal signing. Obviously Jamal Adams is not here. And you have a guy who right now might be playing or seeing a lot of playing time because when they go to, you know, nickel looks, it's going to be big nickel because I'd rather have Lamarcus Joyner, Davis, and May on the field than, Bless Austin or a Guidry. You know, Guidry finished the season pretty well, but again, limited sample size. But yeah, he's a guy you want playing deep, whether that be like a 3 cloud with him and May deep or cover 6, or you even cover 1 and May goes into the box, like whatever it may be. He definitely gives you versatility. I don't think he should be in the slot like the Raiders had it primarily, which is a joke based on like Nania said, like one of the better free safeties in the league when he gets signed and you play him in the slot and he struggles and you just keep him there. Like that doesn't make much sense. But if he goes back to that role for the Jets, like him and May deep, I think it's a good signing, and it offers you some versatility. A lot of people talk. Gavin was the one who talked about the green hair. Now people are requesting green hair and a mullet. So a lot of people are being pretty ballsy here. So we're gonna get into some people are talking about Justin or Zach. We'll talk about that in a little bit once we get past some of the free agency signings. But I'll say it's B plus, A minus. We're gonna hit on some. We have 4 more signings to get through. Tyler Croft. Nani, you first.
I mean, I'm going to go with B plus. I just think tight end blocking is something that is more important than it gets credit for. The Jets have been bad in this area for a long time, and Croft is a good blocker, and he's a versatile one too. He can line up at H back in the backfield. He's not going to give you too much as a receiver, but Robbie, you said it earlier. Like when you're playing 12 personnel, you need a guy out there who can block. We saw that in San Francisco. They had Kittle, obviously, is a great blocker, but they always had another guy who could block, whether it was Dwelly, Toilolo. They always had another guy there who could block as well. So good blocker. Tight end blocking is important. So I do think this is an above average signing. So I'll give him a B plus.
Yeah, I went, what did I do with Croft? B. Pretty much the same thing Nadia said. Do a little bit of everything. He wasn't he wasn't eye popping in Buffalo. Who drafted him? Cincy, I think.
Cincy.
Yep.
Yeah, Cincy drafted him, mid-round pick. He does everything. From everything I hear, he does everything that you ask him to do, and those are the guys you want. So, high character guy to move the ship forward.
Yeah, low in terms of money. When healthy, which is one of his problems. He's had some injury problems, but when he's been healthy,
and that's one thing too with Douglas that's shocked me. If anything, one thing has shocked me, it's that he hasn't been afraid to acquire injury-prone guys.
At the same token, he's not pouring a lot of money. Well,
right.
Other than Lawson, like these are guys like you're looking at again, him and Rankins, like these are guys you can get out of in a year, but high upside, like not necessarily high upside with Croft, but again, 12 personnel, you need tight end blocking, especially on the outside zone. It's gonna be really important. He's really, really good at that when he's healthy. So it's a fine signing. Like I'd rather have him on the field than Daniel Brown, or whoever it may be. So now is tight end still a need to me? Yes, we'll get into that. But wrapping up the last 3 signings, Sheldon Rankins, I'm going to give it an A. So watching his film again, which I'll put out in a little while, and we're gonna do a mock draft, by the way, too. So we're gonna talk about that, but some of the other like needs and stuff. I give it an A. I think his ceiling was a little bit overrated. Like his 2018 year, I think it's a little bit overhyped. But I also think how bad he was last year in air quotes was also a little bit overblown. Like I think he was he was decent last year. And again, 2018, like there was a lot of sacks where like it was blown assignments, like things like that. Overall, I think he's a solid defensive tackle. Is he as good as Quinn Williams? Does he have that ceiling? Absolutely no way. Like Quinn Williams last year was a lot better than Rankins in 2018. That's just like based on their actual play on film. But overall, now it gives you the flexibility, which we can lump this into the signings. I guess I'll just give him and Curry, both A's because they kind of lump them together. Where now, again, you have a lot of versatility in that front 7. Specifically the front 4 where, Q needs off a rep. Okay. Well, now Rankins kicks into 1 tech or 3 tech, whatever it may be, replaces Q. Jonathan Michael Myers goes to 3 tech. And now you have Curry at the edge. Like I think defensive line and specifically like you say, but like playing football, like I think that's the position in football in general where it gasses you out the most. Like that's the most tiring position, I think, in the NFL. So to have depth at rusher is really, really important. And now you're looking at again, Carl Lawson with the Bengals last year, rushing on the edge, winning, quarterback stepping up. Now you step up on the Jets again. You have Rankins, you have Q, you have Jonathan Michael Myers, penetrating that B gap, whatever it may be, to make that sack. So I'm going to lump in Rankins and Curry together, say they're both very good signings. Curry being like $1.5 million. Nani put out numbers on it. I watched the film where in terms of when he's playing, super productive. And you're looking at a super productive guy for $1.5 million or whatever it is. So Nani, I'll kick it to you first. What are your thoughts on Rankins and Curry kind of lumped together?
Yeah, so first with Rankins, I think the biggest thing is that, Jets fans have this sort of stigma with defensive tackles where they're like anti-defensive tackle, which is, I think the reason is because throughout this entire stretch of missing the playoffs, it's the only position where they've been good. So it's almost like they've created this association to where it doesn't impact winning. but that is just so false. It's really important. And, I look at it and just how you're upgrading from Henry Anderson to Sheldon Rankins. It's a 4-man rotation. So Anderson's out, Rankins is in. That's a big upgrade. But I agree with what you said in terms of his 2018 versus where he was these past few years. His 2018, I don't think was like, he wasn't Quinnen Williams. He's not a two-way guy. He doesn't really dominate the run game. And even in the passing game, like great, but not necessarily like what Quinnen Williams can be and like started to be last year. But at the same time, like he didn't really decline that much. Like he was injured, he didn't play as much, but he was still really good these past couple of years. So he's a very well above average pass rusher. And again, like you just add you Franklin Myers, Quinnen Williams, Carl Lawson, Vinny Curry, Sheldon Rankins, like you're really putting together a great pass rush right now. The Jets have not had that in a long time. You just even look at last year, it's like you had Quinnen and Franklin Myers, but other than that, no one else on the defense that you fear at all. And just go through the years, they've never had more than probably 2 guys at most who were legitimately good pass rushers at their position. Now they could have 5. So the pass rush is just the upside for this unit is insane right now. And Rankins is a big part of that. And the contract too, like the numbers came out first, it was like 2 years, 17 million, which definitely would have been a bit much, but it's really not that. The guarantees are only 6 million, I believe, and they can get out of it after 1 year. So it's essentially like 1 year, 6 million. And there are a lot of incentives with it. So it's really another deal just in the range of most of these other contracts. 1 year cheap. It's not what it looked like initially. So you're getting another good pass rusher on your defensive line for another price that's not outrageous. It's a good sign. Then Vinny Curry too. Like he's not, and this is why I think edge is still need. He's not playing the whole game for you. He's playing less than half the game. He's a situational guy. He's 34 years old. So edge, you could definitely still add at the edge, but when he's out there, he's still going to produce pressure as efficiently as pretty much anyone else you're going to find in that role. So the pass rush upside, adding these 2 guys just goes way up. So really, I agree with you. A for these 2 signings, both of them.
Yeah, I'm on the same grade. And what Blewett said, you need depth there. You have to have it. D-line, just like O-line, raises the ceiling for everyone behind them. That's just the way football is. It's inside out. I don't care about the new rules. It's still that way. And it'll be interesting. The versatility, not only the depth, but the versatility. Rankins comes in sub packages. Curry comes in to kick John Franklin Myers inside. And then John Franklin Myers and Rankins could pass off next to Q inside. I mean, to see what they do in terms of the versatility will be really interesting. So yeah, same grades for me.
Yeah, Rankins, like again, he has his weaknesses. Like he's not a 2-gapper. In the run game, like versus double teams, like he will get moved like very far off his spot. So like you definitely want to obviously kick in Fadokasi on rundowns and things like that. But Fadokasi is again like not being biased, but is one of the best run stuffing nose tackles in the league. The Jets have had quite a few of those. Like McClendon was really good and underrated, but just kind of going to not even transitioning. I see some people in the chat asking about Shepard, and I kind of want to compound that with like, what do we think about some of the other guys who want to talk about? Like, does Shepard make the team? What are our outlook? Like, what do we think Zuniga is going to be next year? Bryce Huff, like these are some guys who are backups who are going to be competing for jobs now. Like Huff, I think Nania put this out. Correct me if I'm wrong. And at least in my opinion, when Huff had to play more snaps, I think he got a little bit less productive.
Yeah.
But when he didn't play a lot of snaps, he was actually productive. So I was like, again, and like you look at defensive linemen and like the guys who play the most snaps in the league, I'm generalizing, but like play like what 85% of the snaps. So like having Vinny Curry who could play 25% of snaps, 30% of snaps, and rest guys. I rather have Q playing rested at 80% of the snaps than Q being tired at 90%. So having that versatility, having the ability to rest guys is getting overlooked, but it's absolutely massive. So looking at some of those backups, like what do we think about Zuniga, Huff, Shepard, and Fadokasi's not a backup, but he's not underrated by us. We're talking about that pass rush.
Yeah, I think with Bryce Huff, the point you made is sort of like what I noticed, at least looking at numbers, and also when you're watching him too, like at least just last year, and he was a rookie, he can get better. But he was at his best when he didn't play too much, when he only came in for a few snaps per game. That's when he really showed up. But there were a couple games where he was sort of not necessarily starting, but playing a pretty big role, and he didn't do too much in those games. So he could be like your Vinny Curry long-term. He could develop into that. Your situational pass rusher, 25, 30% of snaps of the game. But he showed a lot of good stuff in terms of, and he's a guy too who has versatility. He could stand up and drop back sometimes if you need him to, but he also put his hand in the dirt sometimes. Zuniga is going to be interesting because he really showed pretty much nothing when he played. He barely played. It was only 8 games, I think, like literally 10 snaps a game, but he did absolutely nothing. So it will be interesting to see where he goes because it was 1 year, it's half a season, you know, all the excuses, but like he didn't show anything. So it will be interesting to see where he comes going forward. But Nathan Shepard, I think, like he's right now the 5th best defensive tackle on the team. And like talking about Keelan Cole earlier being the 4th receiver, how he compares to other 4th receivers, Nathan Shepard being your 5th best defensive tackle definitely he's probably one of the best number 5 defensive tackles in the league because he's in that passing game, he's pretty good. In the run game, I don't know how much he brings, but like
he's
pass
like weirdly
rushing,
streaky.
Yeah. And that's another thing. Like he had a couple of good runs in 2019. And also he doesn't stay healthy. He had the suspension, sort of goes in and out of the rotation, but like he can rush the passer. He's pretty good. So as your 5th defensive tackle, like they have so much depth on this defensive front, but we'll be interesting to see what the young edge rushers do with Huff and Zuniga. And I think they will draft one at some point too.
Yeah. I mean, they're like 10 deep right now on D line. Huff, Shepard, Rankins, Curry, Phillips, Zuniga behind the starting 4, who we think is going to be the starting 4. So it's going to be a hell of a battle in the summer.
I think you might carry all 10, to be honest.
Yeah,
especially the 4-man front, you know.
You know, Shepard, I would originally say he's safe because he's that 4th D tackle. And Nania says 5th. He's probably including Franklin Myers in there.
Yeah.
But he's not safe because Franklin Myers and Phillips could easily bump inside. So it's going to be a hell of a battle.
And that's another guy we didn't even bring up, Kyle Phillips.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like he was pretty damn good in 2019, and then obviously got injured super early in 2020. Like that's another guy on the edge who, as an undrafted guy, proved a hell of a lot in 2 years ago or whatever it was now. So the depth they have is like, if they add a guy, like let's say, you know, whoever it may be, we're going to talk about the draft. There's a lot of guys talk about the draft right now. We'll definitely get into that. We'll do a mock draft. Like let's say whoever your flavor is, Phillips falls to 34 because of some of the problems. Like you add a Jalen Phillips to this defensive line, like wild. Like that is wild. And I see some people talking about 17 games. I don't know if it's me. I don't know if it's you guys too. I have like OCD. So like seeing 17 games bothers the shit out of me.
I agree too. I agree.
It's going to go to 18 games. I'm going to say within 5 years. I do not see it staying at 17.
Yes. Why go to 17 when you can go to 18, 2 buys, and push the Super Bowl back to President's Day weekend?
Like who cares about the Super Bowl being first week of February or second week of February? Like it doesn't matter. They could have a Super Bowl, you know, in freaking July, and people are still going to watch it like it's the NFL. It's king. So just add another bye week. Who cares? But I cannot do like the 9-8, 6-11 crap. Like that's just it's
all the
right.
records. The records thing bothers me. But let's be honest, the records were destroyed years ago with the new rules. So what are you going to do? You know, the records are so distorted now with the passing yards. At this point, it's all gone. Someone's got to come up with a formula to really compare it per era, per year. You know, that's what really someone has to do. Nania should jump on that.
There are some stats where you can adjust like efficiency things like passer rating, yards per attempt, that adjust for era. But in terms of totals, that's something that's a little bit harder to do. But I mean, yeah, it's going to really screw up a lot of things. And I just don't like it. Like 17, that's not a good number. We don't like that. No. Let's do 18.
Yeah, 18. It's going to happen. And it's hard to compare errors. Like it really is. Like basketball, football, I think hockey might be a little bit easier, but like the LeBron versus Jordan conversation, which I saw something really funny the other day, where somebody asked Jordan about like, oh, would your team beat the Heat team or the Lakers, wherever it was? And Jordan said something like, I think we just barely beat him. Like, wow, like we're surprised, like only barely beat him. He's like, yeah, we're all like mid-50s now. Like it was, I was like, yeah, like, but moving on. We have one more signing. Tevin Coleman, hit this quick. I gave it C+. Good receiving back, familiar with the system. Had a really down year last year. We'll dive into some of the film and see exactly why. But overall, again, C+, familiar. Good receiving back, like Nania said. He offers something that some of the other guys necessarily don't. So
yeah, I had a C+ too. And running backs kind of like tight ends, where they don't have to add a guy, but you sure want them to add a guy.
Mm-hmm.
With Ty Johnson, P. Ryan, and Coleman, and Josh Adams, you'd like to see another guy there, and fans are always on running backs. So that's why you see the ETN and Harris.
It's one of the sexier positions, yeah.
Right. So those two positions are they're not necessary to draft a guy, but you sure would like to see one.
Yeah, I like that they added a receiving back because it's something that the other guys don't really offer. Mainly Johnson and Adams. P. Ryan could in college. He did some nice stuff as a receiver. We didn't really see it last year. But Coleman is one of the better receiving backs in the league, or at least over the course of the past few years. Didn't do a ton last year. He's really good out of the slot. He hasn't played it a lot, but when he has, he's been like ridiculously efficient. So I like that. In terms of the run game, I'm not sure how much he's going to bring. I think that's going to be mostly between Adams. Most of the upside is going to be in the other three guys, Adams, Johnson, and P. Ryan, because his rushing last year wasn't too good. But I like that they got a receiving back because they sort of lacked that. So I'll go with the B.
Okay, so moving, and the only like issue I had with it was like, so again, I like what you said there, Nania. It's just like some of the guys who went for a little bit more money, like Jamal Williams, like for 3.5. But again, like I think people like to look at like contracts like they do in Madden. Like, okay, he took 3.5. I think it was $3.5 million from the Packers, whatever it was. Oh well, if the Jets offered 3.75, he'd come to the Jets. Like, it's not necessarily always that simple. Like, you got to look at what happens behind the scenes, like fit. Do they want to move their
connection too?
Yeah. Do they want to move their family? Like,
yeah.
So like there's a lot of things, like not just like, oh, all for the same contract and they'll take it. So a lot of people like look at signings like Joe Tooney, like even Robbie Anderson, which I think a little bit more came out on that, months later, but don't just assume a guy's going to sign here. If the Jets could call Tooney or Lindsey because you think I want to play for the Jets? Like, no, like I want to stay, I want to go to the West Coast. Like I've been playing Green Bay and now I want to go in warm weather. Like you have no idea. So, moving on before we do some of the more draft stuff. Let's talk about some of the biggest positions of need. Let's rank them in top 5. Let's do top 5 and we can throw in some added ones. We'll start with number 1 need, which I think is, there's 2 ways you can go about this. And I think you guys might agree with me. I think the number 1, like the biggest hole on the team right now is cornerback. But the biggest need, because considering of what we're going to do at the quarterback position, you'd almost want guard because that's more important for the quarterback's development. So I would say number 1, considering the situation the Jets are in, it's guard. So that's my number 1. And then what's your guys' number 1? And who are some guys you like at guard or whatever the position of need that you guys are going to state still available in free agency?
Yeah, I agree. I'll go with guard number 1, mainly because of, like you said, I think you could make the argument for cornerback number 1, but just because of the importance of a rookie quarterback coming in, guard is definitely number 1 for me. And they were just flat out really bad there last year. I mean, Van Roten sort of hit his stride and got to a decent level later in the season, but early in the year, he was atrocious. And then everyone else was bad the entire year, especially the backups they had. So guard is number 1 for me. And getting Vera Tucker in the first round would be the dream, I think. I don't know if he's going to get there. If he does, though, that would probably be your best case scenario. But then other than that, in the first round, like you're probably looking at like converting Tevin Jenkins over to guard, which could work, is enticing if they're
No,
down
I was
with
talking
that.
about some guys in free agency, not the draft.
Okay, we'll get to the draft. But in free agency, and I think the biggest thing with guard and free agency was that it was so weak that if they didn't get Tooney, then they weren't ever really going to get anybody. So I know it's disappointing now, but it always looked this way. It was Tooney and Scherf, and obviously he got tagged. And then it was everyone else. And Tooney went to the Chiefs. nothing you can do about that. And that's really it. So they're going to have to rely on the draft really to fix that. There's nothing much else they could have done or really could do right now with the guard spot.
Yeah, I'm trying to come up with ways to disagree, but I can't. It's definitely with Zach Wilson coming in, and yeah, we'll touch on that pretty soon too. Zach Wilson Fields, but with Zach Wilson coming in, it has to be guard. Cornerback, on an even playing field, cornerback is by far the biggest need. But with a nasty D line, with a nasty 4-man conventional rush, it's not as big a need for a rookie quarterback. It is, in terms of guard. And I agree with Nani on the free agency. There wasn't that mid-tier guy to grab. And also, we don't know how Joe Douglas approaches it. Does he not want to overspend on guard because he knows that position is deep in the late first round, early second round this year, where you could lock up a guy for 4 years on cheap dollars compared to going fishing in free agency? Mm-hmm. I think that had something to do with it as well. So Jets fans should keep that in mind, because what the player pool looks like greatly determines free agency. So we'll see. But I'd be shocked if they don't grab one at 23 or 34. Yeah,
I'd be furious, to be honest. Especially and I know Wilson had some good numbers. We're assuming it's Wilson now, which we will talk about. I know Wilson had some good numbers in terms of facing pressure, but it's obviously still something you don't want to do. He had a good offensive line, so let's build a good offensive line for him. Doesn't matter who it is. You want the good offensive line. And again, with free agency, people might be disappointed. And again, I think people just see names and they don't really adjust for scheme fit, things like that. People want Rodney Hudson, he's a strictly power guy. So are you gonna bring a power guy in to play center? And then people will use the argument of, oh, well, the best coaches will fit their scheme. You can't fit a whole offensive line scheme to one player. That's impossible.
No, NFL is scheme specific.
Yeah, it's people. I think people overuse that phrase a little bit too much now. Where at first it wasn't thought about a lot, but now it's oh, just fit them. Okay, well, if you're a heavy zone team, you can't bring in a man corner being generic. But we missed out on Tooney. It was brutal, obviously, to miss out on him. We thought he was going to sign with the Jets. People kind of penciled it in because they went after him so hard, but you can't match the Chiefs. The whole thing with Lindsey, again, if Douglas wants McGovern to play center, then he's going to play center. So you can't bring in Lindsey to play guard. So might that be a mistake? Maybe, but some of the guys out there now, I think if they were to sign one of these guys, maybe you're a little bit more comfortable with it because maybe you cut Lewis and this guy can compete for a job. But I know Try Turner had some injury problems, but maybe a Try Turner, see if he can bounce back. Maybe I know there's I think Nick Easton, Lane Taylor, maybe one of those guys after the draft. I'm not too sure of really names out there, but Lane Taylor, I guess, had a bad injury because he was pretty good with the Packers. Now he's just not even talked about. So
James Carpenter still out there, Sweezy.
James Carpenter, another guy who was massively overrated by Jets fans.
Tom Compton, he was a Jet once upon a time too, I believe, right?
Yeah, for 2019. Yeah.
Yep. The Potty. Yeah, not too many names out there right now. Osemele too.
That's something that's definitely not happening. I believe they have a lawsuit.
I'm sure he'd be thrilled to come back here.
Yeah.
I mean, Gase is gone.
And remember the opening night game this past season too, where Osemele was tearing it up.
Yeah.
For the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Jets fans were going nuts.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so moving on to the next need, which some people are talking about in the chat, I guess not being as big of a need. Corner is a massive need. So you could look at it two ways. Okay, maybe they only need one because they're going to go big nickel. And not historically, but looking at Saleh, he's a guy who, versus 11 personnel, he'll run some more 4-3 than a lot of people do. A lot of people, again, a thing that's thrown around too much is, oh, well, nickel's the new base, so it doesn't matter. But Saleh's a guy who really likes to stay in base. So, but even if okay, so maybe, in a situation where a team might run dime, they run nickel. So they might run a lot more big nickel, but they need at least one corner because I cannot emphasize how bad Bless Austin is. I don't care. He's terrible. And a thing that you talk about the defensive line is again, there's two ways to look at it. The defensive line being so strong, will aid the corners. But at the same time, I don't want to pour so many assets into the defensive line and take away the effectiveness of that because the cornerback play is so bad. Because if you could beat Bless Austin on a 3-step hitch it doesn't matter how quick Q can get there. So you need something there. Q, our corner is a massive need right now. It just is. Again, all things being equal, it's the biggest need, but just because of the rookie quarterback coming in, I would say guard's the bigger need. But Sherman, Casey Hayward, Steven Nelson, I think Sherman, people just like pencil him in here, but he seems like a guy who wants to compete on a West Coast team. Nelson might not be a scheme fit. A lot of people talk about Poole. Listen, like he was not inefficient. He was inconsistent with the Falcons before he came to the Jets, and he was playing, with a guy who had a heavy role in that system in Ulbricht's. Like maybe Ulbricht doesn't want him. Brashad Breeland, Rasul Douglas, I know had some good numbers last year.
Buster Screen.
You're just throwing, like
I'm just trying to
Yosemite, Tom Compton, like
I'm just trying to get you going. That's all.
You know what? I don't appreciate you today, Sabo. You're getting too feisty. But what do you guys? Is that your guys' second biggest need as well? I'm assuming so.
Yeah.
And out of some of those names, is there anybody you're kind of keying in on? I think like Steven Nelson literally like texted people, like said, "Hey, tell the Jets to come sign me," and he's not here yet. So interesting.
Yeah, this is definitely number 2 for me. Like you said, it's very bad right now. Like Bryce Hall's plenty of potential. You pencil him in, he's going to start, but Bless Austin as a starter in the outside just doesn't cut it. He makes some big hits and he's a New York guy. So like he gets hyped for that, but he's not good at all. You don't want him starting for you. And they don't have a slot corner right now, really. I mean, you pencil in Guidry. He played pretty well near the end of the season, but undrafted free agent with 3 games isn't enough to feel confident about. You would hope that they bring back Poole at some point to fill that, but right now they don't have a starting caliber slot corner, and they only have Bryce Hall on the outside, really, in terms of being capable there. So it's a big need, but this is a good class, and I think it's something that I think they'll end up taking on either the second first round pick or the early second round pick. Just with the way the board is looking, it looks like they're going to have a good value at one of those spots. So, but in terms of free agency, Sherman would be great, but like you said, I don't think he's looking. I mean, Saleh definitely helps in terms of attracting him, but it seems like he's looking to compete. But there are some other good names. Steven Nelson, you mentioned, Douglas, Casey Hayward, who's not who he used to be, but is also not Bless Austin.
You'd be banking on a bounce back year. Like a lot of people like look at his year and like, oh, he was absolutely terrible. But look at what a guy in Xavier Rhodes did from his last year.
Who I was going to bring up. You can bank on those veteran corners. You find the right system for them, and they can bounce back. So there are some good options there for them to fill it, and they really should, because you don't want to rely too much on a rookie cornerback. It's one of the toughest positions to play well as a rookie. Like you look at the rookie class last year. Bryce Hall was very promising, but he wasn't great. And he was like the second or third best rookie cornerback out of all the guys who got taken in the first and second round last year. Most of them were terrible. Like Okudah was a top pick. He was horrible. He's one of the worst cornerbacks in the league. Doesn't mean he can't be good, but being a rookie corner in the NFL is extremely hard.
I think it's the second hardest position on a football field.
Right. It's one of the hardest positions, period. So like being a rookie transitioning makes it even harder. It's not a position you want to rely on. I think that they definitely should focus on finding someone who could come in there and provide some security, but they'll definitely address it high, I feel like, in the draft.
To get Joe going a little bit here, how good was the Niners secondary heading into their Super Bowl year? Richard Sherman, all right, everyone thought he was over the hill. Tart and Jimmy Ward at safety. Mm-hmm. K'Wan Williams and Witherspoon. I know their name value has increased, but heading into that year, how good was it really? And how good? I mean, I know they had great grades, that secondary.
So again, were they great? No. Were they decent? Yes. And is decent much more I could say that for Bless Austin? Yes. So yes. I think having decent corner play is good enough for this team because of how strong our front seven is. But again, having Austin out there, and like you said, with Michael saying, it's weird almost to call Michael Mike, because I always hear him referred to as Michael. But
Mikey.
No, that doesn't fit him either. But so, and some people talk about this too, like with Bless Austin, and I have a really strong opinion about it. People talk about him moving to safety. No, absolutely not. He misses a lot more tackle than people realize. And that's a position. it's a position you have to process a lot, and he's not a good processor at corner when you have less responsibilities than a safety where things are flying around your face, even more so with more, there's more, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't even think about it. But
I will say this though, he could have an easier time of it in this defense as opposed to Greg Williams, if anything.
Because
a lot of quarters, cover 3, more zone. Greg Williams, he brings the house as a lot of man situations.
So less pressure on him, more help.
Yeah, he could have an easier time of it. A lot more bail technique in a lot of cases. So if anything, maybe hold your hat onto that. But yeah, I in general, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, he's not a safety. A lot of people say that because they see him make like a hard hit versus the Bills, but then they don't really notice like the other 6 missed tackles. Like I think it was the Bills game. He had like 3 or 4 missed tackles like that first game. I was like, what is this guy doing? Like he's bad.
It's like when he's not thinking as much, he's better. When he has to do something explosive, he's like Darnold. He'll show a play or two, every month, but that's it. It's not consistent.
Yeah. Moving on to the third, I think this is the third biggest need for probably all of us. And I think it's something we all jumped on pretty early. And I think it's something that's not talked about a lot. I see our chat actually talking about it a lot, so I give them credit. I appreciate having smart viewers. Linebacker is again, another massive need. Just based on how Saleh plays, it's pretty simple. He likes to leave linebackers on the field. The Jets linebackers right now are CJ Mosley, hasn't played in 2 years, basically. Davis, who people didn't like as a signing, and for his first round status is a little bit of a bust. Again, I think he will rebound a little bit with the Jets and be a decent linebacker. But even if you're going to say Mosley's going to be a top 10 guy, top 15 guy, which I think he could be. I think you're a little bit lower on him than I am, Sabo, because I never thought he won with like athleticism and stuff. Like he was always mental. Like he's a great thinker.
Yes.
He's a great football player. So I think as long as he wants it, he'll come back. He'll be a top 15 guy. So let's be generous, say he's top 15. Let's be generous and say Davis is a decent Sam, Will, whatever he plays. Okay, that's fine. We're being generous. Who was the third linebacker?
Yeah, right now it's Cashman.
Yep.
He sneezes and he tears his ACL. Like he literally and behind him there's nobody. Like for a guy who likes to stay in base, we have no linebackers. It is a huge need on this team right now. Free agency. Quan Alexander, Devondre Campbell played under. I know he didn't play well last year at the Cardinals, but under Ulbrich with the Falcons, he was okay. KJ Wright, Eric Wilson, like who are we looking at here?
Yeah. Well, Eric Wilson did sign. Forgot exactly what team he went to. He did sign.
Okay.
But I mean, KJ Wright is still out there, but it would be interesting to see how he would fit because he's another guy who's bigger. I think up around 250. So
I think you would play Sam and then you'd make Davis the Will. In that situation.
But still, like he's a linebacker in the NFL who's good, which Blake Cashman is not. So, like this is a huge need. Like when I posted the article about the Jets potentially drafting Owusu Koromoa with the 23rd pick, like a lot of people weren't on board with that, and they act like, oh, a linebacker. Like that it's one of those positions where it's like linebacker is important, but it has this reputation where it's this position that doesn't matter.
It's undervalued.
It really does. Like, just watch the Jets the past few years. Just watch Neville Hewitt try to cover and see how many times tight ends and running backs just go crazy in the passing game because he doesn't know how to play zone coverage, and none of these linebackers have.
Especially, and another point, sorry to interrupt you, is like, look at the division right now. Look at who the Patriots just brought in, and look at who the Dolphins are probably bringing in at the 6th pick right now, if you had to guess.
Exactly. Like 4 games a year, you'll have Kyle Pitts in Miami, potentially, and the combination of and Gesicki, and the combination of Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith in New England. That's a quarter of your season. And the Jets already last year gave up the most receiving yards to tight ends. Now these guys come into your division. So it's important. You don't want guys back there who are just going to drop back, go to their spot and stand there and not adjust to the routes around them. You don't want guys who can't cover man-to-man, or you're going to get toasted. So it's really important. You have Mosley coming back. I think, like you said, he can be top 15. He's an elite player who gets overlooked because he wasn't on the field, but he's great.
He was a top 5 inside linebacker when they signed him.
Exactly. Yeah. He has a game that's like not really that flashy because he's not a great athlete, but he just knows where to be and does the right things. And he doesn't necessarily make huge plays, but he doesn't let the other team make huge plays because he does what he's supposed to do, so they can't. and that's where his impact comes in.
Linebacker is like a position where you need like enough athleticism, but you don't need to be like a blazer. It's more about mental like processing, things like that. So
exactly. But they need another linebacker. It's a 4-3 defense. You're gonna have 3 linebackers on the field a lot, and you would prefer one of them to. And Blake Cashman could get better if he stays healthy, but like you want to be better than that right now. And there are a lot of good linebackers at the top of this draft. So it's important.
It's a huge position of need. It is.
It's a big need right now.
Yeah, and some people talking about David Harris. Hot take. I think David Harris is overrated by Jets fans. Again, the guy who never made the Pro Bowl. Like he was solid, but I don't think he was great. Sabo being like the old like 85 Bears guys, big linebackers. Like, but like how many times did he get toasted on a wheel? You know, like
he was terrible in pass coverage.
Yeah. So like, and like, even like guys, like, I think linebacker is a position where generally not like calling people out, like fans, like general fans, they overlook some of their guys because they're on broadcast. They make tackles like Hewitt,
like Hewitt. I'm like the biggest anti Neville Hewitt guy. Like he was third in tackles or whatever it was, but like congratulations. That doesn't mean anything. Stat. Most of the time he's making tackles probably because he just gave up a 20-yard pass up the seam or got beaten coverage. So tackles mean absolutely nothing.
Same thing with corner. Like you see, like if I'm looking at like Pro Football Reference or whatever it is for like a game, like on a corner, like how many games they play, or how many snaps they played. Like I want to watch that game. If I see a corner with like 7-8 tackles, I'm like,
like someone replied to me recently about Bless Austin. They were like, oh, he was third on the team in tackles, even though he missed 6 games. I'm like, you know what that means? It means he was getting toasted half the time
because he got beat on 3 set pitches.
And the same thing applies to linebackers. Like it doesn't matter. Neville Hewitt is not good.
If they don't add anybody, I'd be shocked if they don't take 2 linebackers in the draft.
Yeah, linebacker, corner, guard, or like consistently positions where like I think at this point, like we're all getting sick of the draft stuff. But like when I'm bored, I'll do like 10 mock drafts in a row. Like it's just like but I always take like 2 corners, like 2 linebackers is a thing. But Sabo, is there anybody that you see in free agency that you like? I don't know if we got your opinion on
I was going to ask you guys who the hell is available. And by the way, the Knicks started, so Blewett, put it on because I know you love the Knicks.
I don't hate the Knicks. I think that Knicks fans are just they talk a lot of smack for a team who hasn't done anything in the last 20 years. And I think Julius Randle is good, but he seems like a psychopath to me. Especially when he loses to the Nets, but it is what it is.
He did lose it there for a little bit.
Yeah, he did. 2 games in a row, he lost it.
But like that fire. Come on, it's like John Starks back in the day.
You like that fire until he's not on your team. It's like a Jamal Adams. Like we love Jamal Adams when he's on the team, but like as a fan of another, like now he's on another team, like he's annoying, type of deal. But yeah, I think in terms of like guys who are available, like Nania said it, like KJ Wright has that connection. I think Devondre Campbell, lower tier guy who people might not be like salivating for, but would rather have Devondre Campbell, who I know struggled last year, or Blake Cashman. Like again, assuming health for Blake Cashman is assuming a lot because he's never done it, since college. So going to the 4th and 5th needs, I'm going to throw it to you guys because I'm curious to see what you guys think it is or what you say it is because I have mine written down. But Nani, what's your 4th biggest need? Because I think guard, guard, linebacker, corner are generically the top 3 for everybody. What's your 4th?
I'm going to go with edge as number 4. And I know this is one I've seen a lot because just writing about potentially drafting linebackers, edge rushers, whatever, people haven't been on board with. But I think it just comes down to the fact that you don't have a second long-term guy after Carl Lawson. Like Vinny Curry's great. He's probably going to provide a lot this year. Bryce Huff and Zuniga, potential, but you don't want to rely on an undrafted free agent and a 3rd-round linebacker who did nothing to just step in and be your long-term guy. Like if you're at 23 and Ojulari or Phillips is there as the best player available, like go for it. Like try to get your Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram duo. Try to get your Von Miller and Bradley Chubb because it's a great defensive front right now.
If you have that combo with Q and with Rankins, like my God.
Right. Exactly. Like it's great right now. It's great, but it can still be better. And also you got to think down the line because, going into next year, you don't have a second guy as the edge. So if you can find that guy this year and establish that like next 4 years, you got Jalen Phillips or Gregory Rousseau or Azeez Ojulari and Carl Lawson as your edge guys, Quinnen, Franklin Myers. We'll see how long Rankins lasts in there, how long he stays. Then like you're set. So I still think edge is an extremely important position, and they could find a second long-term guy there. So I have that as my fourth biggest need.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with that because I definitely want them to snag an edge as well, but slot corner is included in corner, so we can't go there. For the sake of being different, I'll say an offensive playmaker, a guy with hips, a guy who could do it all.
Whether hips who are we drafting without hips?
Unless Austin has hips.
Yeah, a lot of guys have hips.
Yeah, okay. Whether it's a guy, whether it's a running back or a slot, a multi-purpose guy who's a game breaker. So I'll go there. But yeah, it's listen, I'm all in on the edge too as well. In the top, second round or third round at the latest.
Yeah, like there are certain positions I think they need in the draft. Like we definitely all want like a corner and like a guard is definite. Like if they don't take a guard at 23 or 34, like we'll all be furious. But like, if they struggle at corner for a year, it is what it is. Like we're not making it to the Super Bowl, the playoffs this year anyway. So like just get the best players, hopefully their position of need. But just get to the best players. Like obviously just not an interior defensive line. Other than that, we can pretty much take anything. Mm-hmm. My fourth, and not for the sake of being different, is actually backup quarterback. Something I think is huge. Like we don't have it. Like James Morgan, we don't know what he is, but whether it be for a mentor, like not a mentorship, to mentor the quarterback, the new quarterback, and to play, like if he gets hurt, which listen, again, we're on a Super Bowl team. Do we need a Nick Foles to go and win the Super Bowl for us? No, but at the same time, you need something. I think Mullins is still available. I'm not sure whether I haven't brought him in.
With Hoyer?
So like people like they automatically like they kind of look at like, oh, what has he ever done? I'm looking at backup quarterback more for like to lead the rookie. Not a guy like Fitzpatrick who struggled with Tua and like who was with the Jets and like openly came out and pretty much said like I pretty much don't give a crap about who was the quarterback at that time. Was it like
Gino?
Gino? Like you need a guy who will go through offensive installs and go through, tape and things like that. So would I be happier with Mullins because he's been in the system before? He's a little bit more upside. Yes. Alex Smith might be a little bit too expensive. And maybe is looking for to compete for a starting job or whatever. But yeah, Hoyer, Mullins, Smith. Some people talk about Bridgewater. Again, another guy who's looking to start. You don't want that for your rookie. So I think it's a big need though.
Yeah, I agree.
Is there any guys you prefer? Like a lot of people are like, oh, well, you give up a 7th round pick for Bridgewater. I don't. I'd rather get the cheap guy, the Hoyer or the Mullins than
Mullins was my guy. Mullins was my guy leading up to free agency, so I think Mullins number one. But I'd be happy with Hoyer because Hoyer, like you said, he knows his place, he knows his role, and as people don't realize it sometimes, but Fitzpatrick was the perfect example. You don't want to stir things up, and even if you're just competing. You don't want to stir things up.
Exactly.
You need the NBA. I'm watching the Knicks. It's the perfect role player league. You need to know your role, or it doesn't work sometimes. And that's the same in the NFL.
For Nets fans, TLC needs to learn his role a little bit. That freaking guy.
Yeah, then that's how do you guys lose to the Lakers without LeBron?
So I obviously know you're trying to stir.
That confirms the Knicks are better.
Yeah, you're trying to stir me up obviously right now, but we're the number 1-2 seed in the league and have, I think that you could argue 3 of the top 5 offensive players in the NBA right now. So I'm not too worried.
Becton couldn't believe it. He tweeted it out. How? I just don't get it.
So actually something about Becton is like, and this is I get like a side topic, whatever.
A Twitter take here.
Is he a little bit too active on social media sometimes for your guys' preference?
I'm gonna say no, just because I don't think he engages in things that are bad. Like you look at Jamal Adams on Twitter, like that's negative. Like that's not good for his mental health. What he does, he's searching his name and he's looking for things to get mad about. That's bad. I don't think Becton does that. He has a really positive mentality. But yeah. I see what you're saying, but I think he does it the right way.
Something that I've turned Nania, maybe not turned him to the dark side. I think he's already on the dark side, but he's been a little bit more vocal with it recently. Is the Baldy stuff. So I like Becton's best friend, but that freaking guy. But we'll get off of this stuff. I'm not gonna get myself in trouble. I'm not getting JetX in trouble. My 5th biggest is actually again something that people are not gonna think of a lot. Like, yeah, would I want an edge over this? Yes, but in terms of like actual just like Need kicker. What's
Yes.
happening at kicker right now? Dan Carlson, Bailey, Gonzalez, Gostkowski, I think still out there, but like Ficken. Who was the guy? Ross Martin. Like, why did he never kick for the Jets? I don't understand the Ross Martin thing.
But Corey Vedvik was able to, but Ross Martin never got a shot. The absolute legend.
Yeah,
absolute legend.
Yeah, they gotta put some effort into kicker because the results have matched up with the effort. They haven't tried. Martin was the last, I think, even undrafted free agent they signed a kicker. I think that was 2016. In terms of free agents, like Ficken is bad. He's bad for other teams, so he's bad for the Jets. It's the same thing with like Sergio Castillo out of nowhere. I know he was a replacement for Ficken, but like just try, do something, or else you're going to keep getting the same results. They've really been the worst kicking team in the league the past 2 years. They, I believe, are last in extra point percentage and second worst in field goal percentage over the last 2 seasons, but we just don't pay attention to it because the Jets haven't played games that matter. Like the Bears miss a kick in the Bears miss one field goal in the playoffs, and it's the biggest need in the entire league. And the Bears should spend a first-round pick on a kicker just to fix that. But the Jets missed 20 kicks left and right, but just because they're already getting blown out, nobody thinks about it. But hopefully starting next year, you're playing games where you're actually trying to win, and it's going to start to be in the spotlight more. So fix a problem before it actually gets into the spotlight. So free agents, it's not strong right now. Hopefully they draft one. But just put some effort into it.
That guy from Miami.
Yeah, there's him. There's a guy from Florida, McPherson. He actually has the highest field goal percentage in SEC history, so maybe look at him. But yeah, just put some effort into it.
Breaking news: Aaron Donald a Pittsburgh attorney will file assault charges against Aaron Donald for allegedly attacking a man in Pittsburgh on April 11th.
Did you not see that yesterday?
No.
Did you see the guy's face?
No.
It looks like he got beat with a shovel. Like
this happened yesterday?
April 11th, and they just say that. Look at the guy's face. Google the guy's face. Unless it's like troll job, but he got basically if anybody was to get in a fight with Aaron Donald, that's pretty much what I expect the guy's face to look like.
I got to find this picture right away.
Yeah.
But yeah, the news from the newspaper. I think that's what's going on here.
And
Nania made you made really like a great point. Like legitimately, like especially special teams, like we talk about with Hardy or a punter or a kicker, it doesn't matter because we suck. But when we start to compete, it matters a lot, and the Jets don't have anything. Like look, even Vedvik, like that week 1 game against the Bills, which by the way, like talking about Mosley, if Mosley's 80% of what he was in that first week against the Bills, like we have a really good linebacker, but they win that game, I'm pretty sure, if Vedvik just makes his kicks, right? Because he missed an extra point and missed 2 field goals.
An extra point and a field goal in that game.
And a field goal?
Lost by 1.
Yeah, they would have won the game for sure.
Exactly. So you make one of those field goals.
I do see the guy's face. I do see the guy's face. But yeah, files are being charged. But yeah, they would have won that game if Vedvik just...
listen, like, do I think like the new generation, we got a little Sue happy? Yes. But if Aaron Donald made my face look like that, like it's an easy couple $1 million. So, but moving on, overall grade for Joe Douglas in free agency. What are your guys' thoughts on that? If you had to put like a letter grade to it.
I guess I would go with the B+. I feel like maybe I should even go a little bit higher than that because like they didn't address everything, but everything that they didn't address, it almost feels like there is a reason not to. Like the main thing is the offensive line. I just think that you would have loved to have fixed it, but the options just weren't there. You didn't get Tooney. There's really nothing else you could do at guard. It was a terrible guard class. The only thing they could have done is go for a center like Lindsley, but he seems like he's okay with McGovern, and McGovern is a good player, showed us that he can be. So if he believes in McGovern, then we'll have to trust him on that. We'll see if he's right. But I guess the only criticisms are linebacker would have liked to seen them sign somebody else. There are a lot of good players who were affordable. Sort of the same thing at cornerback. So, and those are 2 pretty big positions of need. So I guess points off for that, but I'll go with B+. I'm like torn between that and A-, but I'll be a little more unbiased and go with B+. What
about you, Sabo?
Yeah, I think I agree with Nania. I
went B+ too, so for the sake of being different.
Yeah, you know what? I'll go B because of the O-line. But listen, Douglas is in my good graces because he fixed a wrong by grabbing Becton last year. if we rewind the clock, receiver, 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 everyone was screaming for receiver at that spot last year.
Oh, that'd been brutal.
It would have been brutal because receiver, as time goes on, it's getting deeper and deeper. Thanks
Yes.
to how college football is being played. It's starting to, I wouldn't say it's matched running back in terms of devaluing, but it's slowly creeping there. So, Douglas doing that, finally selecting the first round offensive lineman since 2006. He's he's in my good graces in terms of offensive line for now. But yeah, B, solid job overall. He's looking for value. He's hoping those first round guys pan out, and they're young too. I like how he attacked the young guys.
Yeah, and again, like what Nania said, like you could look at the offensive line, but like, is that a real criticism? Because like, who is he supposed to sign? Like maybe a little bit more attention to it, but like mine gets knocked from like obviously the highest grade of an A+ to a B+ because of the lack of attention a little bit at linebacker. Would have like some different signings there, and corner. Like those are two positions I feel like you could address now. Like yeah, there are some guys at 23. But like, let's say at 34, like whoever in the mock drafts, like Melifon was there and he's a B+ on your board, but you absolutely need a corner. So now you skip on, let's say Phillips, who's an A- on your board because you absolutely need it. Like, I don't want to force their hand in any position. And now they have guard, linebacker, and corner as massive needs. Like for free agency, you want to fill your positions of need so you can go into the draft and allow yourself to really draft or the draft flexibility. So
yeah,
that's why it's a B+. But yeah, some people are saying that they Googled the guy's face in the chat. Yeah, it's pretty bad. But B+. So let's get into this topic before we do our mock draft and talk about some of the draft things, which is the getting to the draft topics. Something that I know Nania is struggling with. I know me and Sabo are on the same page in terms of who we like a quarterback. But Nania, Fields versus Wilson. Obviously, right now, Wilson's like a -2,000 in Vegas to be drafted by the Jets. You had the whole Steve Young thing. You had reporters basically coming out and saying it was hard to even under the mask at the pro day, like you saw them smiling. You have the whole thing with the Niners who said they traded up to 3 or whatever and didn't contact the Jets. You had the Eagles who wanted to take Zach Wilson at 3. Again, like if you don't think the Niners called the Jets for 2, but traded up to 3, you're crazy. The Eagles clearly have connections with Joe Douglas. Like it's Wilson. It is. But what are your thoughts on these guys, versus each other? Would you prefer Fields? Like, where do you stand? 'Cause I know you're a little bit torn right now, but maybe we could fix that.
Yeah, I don't have a preference right now, and I'm not sure I'm going to get to that point. I really like both guys, and like I know that's not the popular thing to do. Usually you pick your hill and you die on it, and that's how you get the retweets and likes and everything. But like I'm okay with saying like, guess what? I like both guys. So I mean, the thing is like they both have elite traits. They both have a few specific things that you can point to where it's like that's what he does really well, and that's what could make him a star in the league, whether it's Wilson's touch throws and arm angles, getting out of the pocket, Fields' athleticism, his arm power, and his deep ball is great. So they both have a lot to bring to the table. Their production, their numbers at least were elite this past season, both of them. And Fields also has a 2-year sample of doing it while Wilson doesn't. So I think that's sort of a point to his side. Although Wilson did, although his numbers aren't great, I know his actual play was a lot better than it looked. But I definitely like both guys a lot, and I don't really have a strong preference right now.
So to not allow you to cop out of that answer, number 2 pick of the draft, Michael Nania is the GM. He's calling it in. Who is the pick for the Jets?
Justin Fields is the pick that came to mind. I'm sorry.
Wow.
I know a lot of people aren't going to like it, but I just went with the first name that came to my mind when you said that, and I went with Fields. I'm just going with the pedigree. He's been the number 2 guy in this class for a half decade, really. 2 years of elite play, all the tools. I feel like he's a guy who's being overanalyzed. So, but again, like, trust me, I like both of them. But Fields was my gun to the head answer right there.
I mean, I don't dislike Fields at all. And admittedly, I still have a lot of film to go through. I'm halfway through the Boise State game right now for Wilson. But I think where they're really separated in my mind is Fields has a lot more unknowns on whether it'll translate over to the NFL. He's kind of in Lawrence's category. The offenses they ran in college, you don't know. You think he could do some things, such as progress to number 2, but you don't know for sure. Whereas Wilson, you know for sure. And Wilson, his release is special. His feet are special.
Mhm.
It's a 3-step league. It's a quick league, and it's becoming more so every day. And the speed for which he releases the ball and makes decisions and anticipates, on routes, I think that's where it separates Wilson from Fields.
Yeah, Fields definitely so. There's so many ways we could go here.
There's so many things. Yeah, there's so many
things I actually do think he went to 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 actually, more than people think he did. And his offense isn't a very pro style offense because Ohio State, who cares about Ohio State? Like, they want to win. Where Wilson, he ran a more pro style system. You saw more NFL type concepts with BYU. Fields, like Nania says, like, he has the athleticism over Wilson. He has the deep ball. His deep ball, I know Wilson's like touted for his deep ball. I think it's good. I don't think it's great. Some of those balls won't translate to the NFL for me, but Fields, like, he's more traitsy for me than he is like a quarterback, like, where I'm confident in his quarterbacking ability, where Wilson quarterback better in terms of anticipation, like you said, which is really important for an offense that the Jets will have in a yak-based offense. You need to make that quick decision, quicker release than Fields. The similar system to the Jets at BYU over Fields. Fields went through his reads. He's definitely too confident in the pocket. I don't think he has bad pocket awareness. I think he's too confident in his ability to get out of the pocket and get out of bad situations. So you'll see him take sacks. The fact that he got calls from the sideline, up until he couldn't anymore, like 15 seconds left on the clock, is a little bit concerning. The option routes. It's like he wasn't staring down receivers just to stare down receivers. He was staring down receivers because he had option routes. So whether it be, a 9 that could break to a comeback or to a curl or to whatever it may be. So that's why he was staring at guys. But for me, watching his film, he really needs to see guys open before he throws it, where Wilson, like you said, Sabo, has that anticipation, where Fields can take it that extra second, which in the NFL is massissive. So, like, I get
velocity, variety too.
Yes, exactly. And to be honest with me, like, again, I like Fields. I'm not going to die on his hill. Like, if they did draft him, I would be disappointed, but I would still be like happy. Like, I'm okay with it. But I think also his accuracy is a little bit overrated to me. Like, watching his film, there was a lot of balls he missed with touch that he just sailed. But it's the accuracy, it's the anticipation, it's the gimmicky college offense he ran. It's the lack of trigger, the lack of anticipation at times. It's the slower release. Like, there's a lot of things he has to fix to be a good quarterback, even though his ceiling to me is absurdly high. Like, it's higher than Wilson's, but there's a lot he has to do to reach that ceiling in the NFL. And I just can't bank on that over a guy in Wilson, who I just think is more translatable to what I saw. So I get a lot of the bullet points that people discuss with Fields, where it's the arm strength, it's the ability to escape the pocket. They're all like the traitsy things like that are like the hot topics in today's NFL fandom, whatever. But like, in terms of actual quarterbacking, Wilson was clearly the better guy for me, to be completely honest. Even though I'll be happy with Fields, and again, this might not be like the sexiest thing to say, but like, a redraft of like where I had Darnold as a prospect, I would have Wilson 1, Darnold 2, Fields 3. Like, I watched some Fields tape and I was a little bit disappointed overall in what I came away with him. But again, I don't hate him as a prospect. I'm more confident with Wilson. But then again, with all that stuff, Wilson, the trigger, the off-platform throws, like you said, the velocity variety, which is important, the reading of leverage. But he has things to fix. There were some times he struggled, like his going through his reads is a little bit wonky. His pocket footwork was a little bit wonky. There were some times to me where he pulled some Mahomes thing in a bad way, where Mahomes is one of his biggest weaknesses. He bails out of the pocket too much. He'll run and take that 20-yard sack, which I saw Wilson do instead of stepping up in the pocket. Some balls over the middle are a little bit lacking some accuracy that I want to see. So like, there's some problems with Wilson, but again, getting long-winded in a lot of different directions here. I'm just more confident in him as a quarterback. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes complete sense. And don't get me wrong, I think Fields can progress.
Yeah.
It's just, like you said, we're kind of saying it in different ways. It's the unknowns. It's the unknowns that you don't know if it's translatable. Yeah. And even with Lawrence, some of that stuff is there for me. But Lawrence,
a lot of screen passes.
Yeah. And Lawrence's release, I think Lawrence I wouldn't describe it as long, but it can be long at times, depending on what he's about to do. But yeah, just watching Wilson, it translates better. It's much easier to know what will work in his game and what won't at the next level.
Yeah, and like that's the thing with like Fields too is like, and somebody said in the chat it's not a big thing, but like I always hear like, oh, the elite accuracy. He doesn't have like, it's almost like power control over the middle. Like he has to whip a ball. Like he doesn't have that, like, again, the velocity of variety.
Yeah,
like that's
velocity.
That's a really good phrase.
Intermediate too.
He lacked that intermediate for me. But Nani, is there anything you'd like to contest there? Is there anything that changed your mind? Because like, again, I think a lot of what people talk about with Fields is the traits, not the actual like quarterback play. And again, there are things that are overblown. The pocket awareness, he has it. He's just too confident in himself. The not going through his reads, he did, but again, it's a really gimmicky offense. And like, even just like again, you don't have to watch the film necessarily. You should, but like, even just going on a YouTube highlight of him, like how many balls did he throw to wide open guys? Like a lot of people say, oh, well, Wilson's competition. Okay, Fields was playing with Olave and all these guys when we drafted in the second and third round and throwing in wide open windows where, Wilson might be playing lesser competition, but with less talent on his team. And he did have a ton of time in the pocket. He was still efficient and good when he faced pressure. And some of the windows he was throwing into, which one for me, he's a little bit too risk adverse and probably shouldn't throw to in the NFL. But some of the windows he was throwing into, like consistently, were absurd. And they would work in the NFL. So, Nani, anything to add on to that? Like, is there anything that you think we're missing or?
No, I mean, I guess I think the only thing is I'm equally as high in Wilson as you guys. All the things you mentioned are the exact reasons that I like him. Like he's a lot easier to project into the league than Wilson for sure. And he's just more natural. But I guess I'm just a bigger believer in Fields' ability to correct all of those things and hit his ceiling because, like you said, I think his ceiling is definitely higher just because of everything he does have. So I guess it's just a confidence in his ability to hit that ceiling is probably bigger for me than it is for most other people. But again, like I just really like both. So I think that's really where I'm at. But everything you guys said makes perfect sense. I think Wilson is going to be the pick, and it's definitely I'm going to be really excited about it.
I've just so for me, Sabo, and like you're not brutally older than me. You're like 10 years older than me, but like so. And again, I think Fields could be a good prospect. I just think in terms of like guys with similar issues to Fields, I've seen less guys than I've wanted to correct those mistakes to make me feel confident in that pick.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But here's the other conversation. How much of what we're talking about matters anymore? I mean, obviously it all still matters, but the other conversation is how much is the game changing where some of that stuff where you don't need the touch in certain areas, complete a 10, 15-yard out, for example, even before the break matters anymore. Lamar Jackson, look what he did.
But so for me, like Lamar Jackson's like a good example for both ways because Lamar Jackson is a guy who really struggles on the outside, like outside the numbers. And Lamar Jackson is also a guy, maybe hot takey, whatever. David Harris is overrated. Ryan Tannehill's overrated. I think Lamar Jackson's overrated. Like the year he won MVP, like I didn't think he deserved it. Like I think he's like a top 10 to 15 quarterback, but like to put him up there with the Wilsons and the Mahomes, like he's not nearly in that range for me. Like me let's say I was a Ravens fan, this is going to be hot takey, but like, is he good enough to win a Super Bowl with? I'm not sure if he is. Signing him to that huge contract, which he's going to demand because he's that big name, like $45-50 million. I wouldn't do it. So like that's a good example to kind of prove me right. Where like well, not me right, but like the question you bring up, like I know you're just bringing up as a point of conversation. You don't agree with it necessarily, but like you need that touch over the middle, like especially with the Jets, like a lot of layered concepts, like things like that. Like touch is important, anticipation is important, and those are just two things I really feel like Wilson was a much better at than Fields for me, and reasons I would want to like draft him. Like again, like I get Nania is he is confident in his ability to correct it, but I've just seen it less, or it be fixed less than makes me confident in that pick over Wilson. Like it's not so easy to correct that stuff. It's just not.
Right. I'm going to keep saying I need to watch more film until the night before the draft. I'm just going to keep saying it. But
I got 140 plays queued up.
Oh, you're ahead of me for sure. But what does Lamar look like outside of Greg Roman's offense? That's a huge question as well. I mean, Greg Roman is perfect for him. You know, he did wonders for Colin Kaepernick, and that all fell apart. Harbaugh, Roman, Kaepernick. So yeah, I agree with you on Lamar Jackson pretty much across the board. The game is changing. Some of the stuff is becoming less important. At the same time, you don't see that stuff win the Super Bowl still. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. I like when you watch Wilson throw too, he just, even at pro days are silly, they're stupid, but he didn't take the safe route at pro day.
Can we distinguish the fact that rolling out to your left and throwing across the body opposite hash is a lot harder than rolling out to your left, throwing to the left? Like I get the whole Fields thing with that throw, but they're completely different throws.
Yes, they are. They're completely different throws. But like even just simple, 10, 12, 15-yard outs, Wilson in his pro day was willing to throw it with a different velocity way before the break and hit him on a dime. Whereas Lawrence and Fields would wait a little more for them to come open. They just, those little things.
That definitely shows up in his film where he has to see the guy open more for sure.
Yeah, those little things. And I understand Lawrence's position when he had his pro day, taking it safe, making sure just everything ran smoothly. You don't need to do anything. You're already the number one pick. But that's just the little differences to me.
So Nania, Jets pick at 2. Is it Wilson?
You guys are convincing me. Like, and this is the way it is. Like, I'll just see an article or something, and it'll just turn me to one side or to the other. So you put me over on the Wilson side. I'm not going to sit here and deny things you guys said.
And
so
and again, like I'm not even trying. Like I'm trying to be fair. Like it's again, it's not a hill. I'm not dying on either side.
No, me neither.
Like I would like Fields as well if Wilson wasn't in this draft, but like. Again, a lot of those things like we discussed is a lot of the quarterbacking position that I just think he's better. Like it's more traitsy with Fields. Like it's I don't want to be wrong for saying this maybe, but like it's more like the sexy, like younger generation, like flashy guy they can play with Madden things about Fields that people like over the actual quarterbacking play that I saw that will be translatable.
But the big key,
and I hope Nania trusts us enough to like we generally know what we're watching when we watch these guys,
The big issue too, though, is, and I think I'm more concerned about it than Joe is, the injury aspect with Wilson. He's had surgery, twice on both shoulders already? And, those
Drew Brees had the same shoulder surgery as well, by the way. Same doctor. The doctor who did the surgery on Drew Brees. Basically, I think Scott Mason said, like, hey, yes. He's fine. Like it's
Mason told me too. It's still in the back of my head, that fear is there, and especially the way he throws. He has no problem, and he's natural with it. Of course, it's special what he does, but that's still got to be there in the back of your mind because he doesn't. We talked about it on Slack the other day. He doesn't drive all the time, even when he should, and not connecting the lower with the upper is a bit of a concern.
Now, opposite side of that coin. Injury stuff with Fields being so confident in his running ability and taking some sacks. Yep. Is that something like, are you getting, let's say if Wilson's shoulders, healthy and he goes through his career, like Wilson might be that 10 to 15 year guy where Fields might be a 7-year guy because he takes those shots. Like we saw the shot he took in that Clemson game, which a lot of people like that Clemson game. And to me was better than any game that Zach Wilson's ever played. Like that's the problem is people will put up that one game and say, oh, look what he can do. But I didn't see that type of game from him consistently enough to say that's him. Like Geno Smith had a really good game against the Falcons or Fitzpatrick against whoever. Like those games happen. And again, I'm not completely diminishing Fields, but is that a concern with Fields that he's going to run too much, take some sacks?
It's a big concern, and that's definitely a concern. And when you look at the competition, I think people miss the point. It's not about the competition you face when you're a quarterback. It's about the odds you come into the game with on a week by week basis.
Yeah.
How much better is your team as opposed to the other team? That's really it. And with Wilson, I think his BYU teammates were much better than the opponents, especially this year. I think they played 2 ranked opponents, but in previous years, it was only 2 or 3 ranked opponents. I saw progression with Wilson. You also want to see that spike up, and he made the most impact out of all the 3. Clemson, Ohio State, winners every year. Wilson, they were 4-9, I think, before he came. 7-6, great season. He made a huge impact, whereas you can't point to that impact with the other 2 guys.
Yeah, like look, like again, and don't take this the wrong way, chat. Anybody, and I hate even to say this, but Dwayne Haskins was very good with Ohio State. Like, so I have a lot of confidence in Fields. He's a lot better than Dwayne Haskins, but that offense is really gimmicky. Like that's not a translatable offense. It's just not.
It's tough.
And when you're throwing to guys like Chris Olave in a 20-yard window consistently, like it's just, like again, and Wilson had the same thing. Like, okay, he had time in the pocket, all this stuff, but like Fields, like throwing to wide open guys a lot. And like the Clemson thing, like, oh, he took down this powerhouse. Who's getting drafted from Clemson's defense in the first 4 or 5 rounds? Yeah. I can't think of one player.
And Sabo, that's a good point you made in terms of Wilson and his team, at least BYU against the opponent, because the counter argument that people make with Wilson in the competition is that, look, his offensive line is great. His receivers played great. He's going to have, I believe his left tackle and his top receiver are going to be drafted this year. But before this year and before the past couple of years when Wilson took over, BYU was not putting offensive talent out there. They haven't had an offensive player drafted since Jamal Williams in 2017. Before that, it was 2009. And now they're going to have 2 guys drafted in 1 year. So I think it more so just speaks to how much he's elevated them since coming over. And you mentioned their records the past few years, 7 wins, 4 wins, I believe.
Yeah.
Whereas what you're getting with Ohio State and Clemson, you could put whoever you want in there. Both those guys are going to move on, and they're both teams are going to be dominant next year. But with Wilson, is BYU going to be as great without him? I don't think so. They weren't before. So the talent, yes, BYU was really good and they were better than most of the teams they played. But I think also a big reason for that is just the fact that Wilson elevated them that much, because you compare them with him versus before him, it's a much bigger difference than you get with the powerhouse school.
And is it going to be faster for Wilson? For sure. But the good news is he's fast. His release is...
Those tight window throws are translatable too.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. But he's fast. His release is just ridiculous, and his hands and his feet are. And
I think sometimes he gets a little bit too fancy, like trying to look off guys and these shovel passes when he doesn't need to. So he'll need to hone that in. But like his ability to get the ball out quick on off-platform throws is massive. Like again, I'm not comparing him to Mahomes, but like look how much difference that makes. That the Mahomes could do that for that Kansas City Chiefs offense, and he has that ability, in my opinion, much more than Fields does. Like Fields makes the throws on the run, but like off-platform type throws, hitch up 2 steps to the left, throw it between the left tackle, left guard type deal in a window that you have to hit it in that split second. Like he has that ability, which is ridiculous. And again, he might need to hone in some stuff, the scrambling, the no look passes, like some of that stuff. And and in terms of the talent, like the competition thing, which I know Nania did a film review and a breakdown of it. Like his game against Coastal Carolina wasn't great, but it was okay. Like he didn't get destroyed in that game. And so there's some things he needs to fix. But overall, just the quarterback position, I just think he's better. Like that's just my opinion, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm not, but it's just that's how I feel. Like I'm pretty strong in Wilson over Fields. Now again, if Fields hit his ceiling, great, but I can't bank on that over what Wilson is showing, what's translatable. And something that people talk about, which kind of, I had a brain fart. I was going to bring it up and I changed directions, was to me, people talk about Wilson, the competition he faced and the talent on his team. I think that Fields with his talent versus what he played was aided more by the team he was on versus his schedule than Wilson with the talent on his team versus the schedule he faced, in my opinion. From what I watched on film, he was throwing into wide open windows very, very, very consistently. Where Wilson, he had some time, but I would argue that throwing into a tight window with more time is more translatable than to Fields having, both a clean pocket and throwing into wide open windows. I just thought that he had it easier than Wilson, in my opinion. I don't know if you agree with me there.
Yeah, I completely agree. And just the competition point is raised, every football player has a history and its experience. And when you play in a Clemson or Ohio State type college offense, it'll take some time. It'll take some time to get used to the next level, more so than what Wilson did in that offense. Just like a lineman coming from an air raid. It's just, I'm in total agreements with you. I'm thinking as I talk, about other things, but it has to be Wilson.
You're watching the goddamn Knicks.
I got to check the score. It's Zion. It's the Pelicans, but
Which, by the way, something we talked about before too. I want to get Nani's like final thoughts on this, like maybe, and like you say, he swayed him a little bit, but I want to get like final thoughts if like we actually did, if we're just saying that to be nice. The thing like too, like you said, like wide receivers, like offensive linemen, like air raid, all that stuff makes it hard for the transition. Like people talk about the draft with wide receivers. I'm relatively confident every year is gonna be like, oh, the next new best class of wide receivers. Like there's gonna be wide receivers coming out every single year. Like
it'll be like
it's just how it is
this
now.
is the most important election of our lifetime. It's the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone is. But Nania, any final thoughts? Are you? I know you're leaning more Wilson now, but like, over, are you going to switch back in 2 days? Like, or what's your deal?
No, I mean, like, I'm not doing it just to be nice to you guys. Like, your points are legitimate. I think the biggest thing is just in terms of like the odds of the projection. Like, the best case scenarios are comparable. Fields maybe even better, but the biggest thing is just like the odds of that happening. I think for Wilson, he has a better chance. The transferability is easier for him. I think I still like Fields a lot, but like I think the points you guys made about just how likely it is for him to change those things, how many different things that he's going to have to adjust versus Wilson, who even though like say we want about the competition, we just talked about a lot, but the things he was doing, just the throws he had to make, the windows he's throwing into were more NFL quality than Fields. So like I'm definitely back a little bit more on the Wilson train. We'll see what happens over the next few days, but
it's like simply the like really like the biggest points are like the offense he ran much more translatable, the anticipation much more translatable, the off platform throws, the movement is more translatable for like for success. And the quick trigger, like that matters. Like the anticipation, seeing guys open, like he's quicker to do it, and his release is much quicker than Fields. And those are all things that are like those traits that he has over Fields are massive in quarterback play. And like those are traits, like argue with your wall, Wilson definitely has over Fields. Like I don't think there's any arguing that. Even the biggest field support. Well, let's not say that because there's some crazy people out there, but like the people who actually like know and are fair. I don't think you can argue any of those traits that Wilson does not have over Fields. And those are all things that are much more important in today's NFL than being, whatever Fields is 235 and can run and all these things. Like those are great, but will the rest, will the mental, will the offense, will that stuff translate? I don't know, so.
What do you think the percentage is right now of Jets fans wanting Fields as opposed to Wilson?
I would say 75-25.
25.
And I think it's just going to increase as like, no, in Wilson's favor. But I think like that's just going to keep going up if, with him being the favorite now, like, people are going to accept it and rationalize with it. But I feel like he was the favorite even before it became clear he was going to be the guy. I think Wilson's kind of had the edge for a while.
How many Jets fans do you think don't believe in Wilson? And it sounds crazy, but it's definitely a part of this. Don't believe in Wilson because he looks like your 15-year-old neighbor.
Oh, it's there. Like it's people will literally, because people Google stats and like that's automatically what they feel like. So like the guy's look is like that might be a thing. Like, and like I said, like never mind. It's just like I said, I feel like a lot of and it's not because there are people who are 45 years old, but I feel like Fields being like traitsy, like the more Madden type quarterback, like the generic build you want is like why a lot of people want him instead of like the actual like intricacies of the game. To me, like again, I could be wrong, but
in terms of look alone, Fields is my pick. But
yeah, like looking at like let's see, just where people are aware after they're drafted, and I think I'm gonna do a 30 play review of each before, and just in terms of Wilson, like in terms of like because like listen, like we're more NFL than we are draft. Like we're gonna dive into the draft and do all our stuff. Like we're more NFL. Like we're Jet X. Like we're the Jets. But like we'll look into the college stuff. But like I'm disappointed that Wilson wasn't more talked about in 18 and 19. Like I watched his 19 stuff. Like, yeah, he was less efficient than he was in 2020, but I watched his 2019 stuff. I was like, wow, like how is he not talked about a lot? Like a 6th, 7th round guy, whatever.
You really got to hit a high ceiling to get the attention over there,
Yeah. I have 129 plays of Wilson. I think there's like one game I might be missing, but I think I'm gonna do like 30, 35 before the draft. And I'll have like 2 shows, like 3-hour shows about Wilson. So they're gonna get a lot, but anything else close on the argument, and we can get, or not argument, but that discussion, and we can get into one other drafting, and then we're going to do a mock draft real quick.
I think we're good. Let's move on. We'll be talking so much about this every single day
for 15 more days.
Yeah.
Moving on, targets at 23, positions to look at, and generally too, like, is there anything you guys would be really upset with at 23? Like a situation that plays out that you'd be pissed at the Jets?
I think if they take anything other than any O-line position, obviously we assume if it's a tackle, they'd be converting them. But O-line, corner, edge, and O-line, corner, edge, and I think those are the main three, or linebacker, O-line, corner, edge, or linebacker. Anything other than that would probably not be ideal in the first round.
Yeah, and the good news is I can't imagine it happening because, the interior O-line is so deep. So there's always going to be a player there for him. Maybe would anyone flip out if he traded down significantly from 23? I don't know. I don't anticipate that happening either. Maybe slightly, but not a big time drop.
Yeah, I guess like it depends obviously on how the board falls. Like, listen, like, okay, like Nani said, like those 4 positions are the ones you really need. Like, so what do I prefer? Corner, O-line? Yes, but if none of those guys are there and they really like Quinnipiac or Phillips, like, okay, then grab one of those guys. Like, I'm fine with that. But like, if it's like a Bateman or an ETN or like one of those guys, I'll not be happy.
Yeah.
Or depending on like the trade down, like you might say trade down, but it depends on who's on the board. Like if Vera Tucker's there on the board and they trade down, like people are gonna be furious, in my opinion.
ETN, I wasn't thinking running back because I think it's such a far-fetched idea. But yeah, if it's running back, I'd be upset.
Running back, listen, again, for a Super Bowl contending team, like if the Bucks draft, ETN at 32, okay, fine. You're making a Super Bowl run. That's one of the last things you need. Get it. But for a team who needs so many things, running back is the least important position in the NFL easily. It just is. And you saw the whole Le'Veon Bell thing not work out, which like for that reason, like, listen, like Le'Veon Bell, I was excited because the Jets never have superstars, but like looking at it, like logically, bringing in a superstar running back behind an offensive line that's terrible is never a good idea. And especially where they were like in their life cycle of an organization, they did not need Le'Veon Bell. It just wasn't the right move. So for a team who's not going to compete for another 2-3 years with needs at linebacker, corner, guard, tight end, taking a running back at 34, 23, I cannot condone it. So I would say running back, receiver based on how based on like how, the Jets roster is now. And that's assuming like, obviously the guys who are at 23 are realistic. Like obviously, okay, if Devontae Smith falls at 23, now we have a discussion, but I don't think that's a real discussion. So other than that, are we good? You guys want to do, we'll do a quick mock draft.
Yeah.
We'll discuss some things as it comes, trade up, things like that. We'll do PFN. I just don't want to do the whole JetX thing is we have to do the off season too. I just don't want to do that right now.
No, yeah, do PFN.
Okay. So, which we're going to continue to hone in on that mock draft and all that stuff too. There are some guys who like fall in that one that I think we should clean up.
The order is we're working on it. The order is quite messed up right now, actually.
Oh, really? Well, listen, first year, we're killing it. We're gonna fix that mock draft. Okay. So biggest needs going into this, we're all agreeing is we're going to assume they're going to sign a backup quarterback. But like linebacker, corner, edge, tight end. I missed one, guard.
Yep.
Okay. Let's see. So what we're going to do for this, me and Kyle did this last time. We'll get Nania's and Sabo's picks. And then I'm either going to split the difference and be the tiebreaker, or I'm going to go in a completely different direction. And then the chat is going to decide on this.
Okay. Okay.
I know a lot of you bastards in there are going to want running backs early. Don't do it. Don't do it to me. But, all right, let's draft. I think they have this is the one I usually use. They have some of the, what is it called? They have the updated picks. Okay. Nania, we're going to put you on the board at number 2. Who are you taking here?
All right. What do we think about Sewell, Robbie? No, all right. I'm kidding. I'll go with Wilson. I'll go with your guys. You guys swaying me. I'll go with Zach Wilson here. Or actually, how about we make it interesting? I'll just take Fields. Robbie, you're probably going to take Wilson. What if we leave it up to the chat to decide this one?
Oh, well, no. We have Sabo, who is going to go. I'm Sabo, I'm assuming. And this is we're not going to necessarily do what we think the Jets will do. I think it's a mixture because we all want what's best for the Jets, but we'll just do what we think they should do. So he's going Fields. What are you thinking, Robbie? You're gonna do Wilson?
I'll do Wilson, and really quickly, per Rich Samini, I think someone mentioned in the chat earlier, Fields' second pro day was today. Jets were there, but Douglas was not there.
So can we also discuss something with like the pro day thing? Like I know it's like the sexy thing to be like, oh, Fields pro day, but are there not other draftable players who play on Ohio State? Like that's their job, like Sean Wade and Wyatt Davis. And even though I think Wyatt Davis has an injury, so I don't know if he would even be there, but like maybe for medicals, whatever it may be. So I wouldn't look too much into that stuff, to be completely honest, but the entire chat is saying Wilson.
All right. So we'll go Wilson.
I'm saying Wilson. Like I said, it's going to be your two guys' votes. I'll tie break. If all three of us go different directions, we'll tie break with the chat. But I don't know if all these people were Wilson before we had the conversation, but I'm hoping we swayed at least a person or two. Wilson's the pick, and it's the pick the Jets are going to make. So we're going to go Wilson. If you guys see somebody on the board falling who we want to trade up for from 23, let me know, and I'll pause it quickly. We could reevaluate every other couple picks, I guess. Is anything surprising here? I don't think so.
Not so. Where is Vera Tucker ranked on this?
One really quickly, the fact that Kyle Pitts is not off the board right now, I think is bananas. But he's 21st on the board.
I guess there's a possibility he could be there then. All right, let's keep. He's the only guy I'd probably think about. I mean, if something ridiculous happens, we're seeing right now, Pitts, Smith, maybe.
So and I don't know what the compensation would be. If this happened, is Pitts?
Oh, actually, I'm not trading up for Devontae Smith.
No, not Smith. He's another guy. Like I like him for what he is, but listen, I'm not gonna lie. If Pitts fell to 11 and the Jets traded, a second and a third or whatever to get Pitts, I know it's a tight end, but I might do it. I'm not saying we're going to right here, but I think it's something that you'd consider.
Yeah, for him, I'd probably think, but he's that special to where you could think about it.
I don't think he would fall here. I think this is a little bit off. In this one, I see his floor at I really think he's going to the Dolphins. I really do.
I do too.
But okay, we'll continue. But Surtain is still there. Pitts is still there. If Pitts falls to 14, 15, I think we might have a discussion. But
I think the Eagles will pick him. Ooh. Oh, there
Chargers.
Went 13th.
Are we still good here? Vera Tucker and Horn.
By the way, I did not know J.C. Horn was, what is it, Joe Horn's son?
Yeah.
I did not know that until recently.
Were you living under a rock or?
I think so. J.C. Horn, I think so.
Okay. Okay. So we're in not an ideal situation for me right here. With Greg Newsome being the only guy I really see that I want right now. Would we consider trading up right here or wait another couple picks or what are you guys thinking? Because if he's not here in a couple of picks,
what are we gonna? I guess Kwity Paye is our guy right now.
But then we're gonna force a guard at 34. So
could trade up for ETN.
Trade up for ETN, yeah. God, I'm sure there's some people on this who would want to do that. But Pitts, if Pitts falling to 13, if the Jets traded up to 13 for Pitts, I would be fine with it. For a new quarterback, he's the best tight end prospect I've ever seen. I don't know about you.
I guess I would say stay put because I don't think we should trade up for defense. If it were O-line, I would think about it, but let's stay put for now.
All right, let's see what happens. Please. Oh my God, Newsom went. Yeah, we're not. Oh, well.
Oh, and
okay, so I think for the sake of this mock draft, and us making the most picks today, I don't think we want to take any future picks.
Yeah.
Reject. Okay.
Ooh, this is similar to the one that came up before.
You brought this up, didn't you?
Well, we talked about this with the Njoku falling. So let's see what's the next pick. Wow. Okay, so who is on the board right now? It's I don't know if I could usually have the option to hide it right here. I don't know
Caleb Farley's still there. That's a possibility.
So there's two guys I would be happy with if we traded down. So this is my thought process right now. Maybe you guys will agree. Trading down 3 spots for an extra, what is that? third round pick for a sixth. There's two guys I'm happy with right now, and that would be Jenkins and Farley. Do we take the risk of trading down 3 picks for an extra third?
I think the Steelers are going to take a running back. So with both those guys available right now, so I think they'll both be there if you want to trade down.
So what's your vote, Nania, to take the Browns trade right now? Trade down 3 spots with 2 guys on the board, who I think are pretty realistic for the
I say yes.
What about you, Saleh? You think so too? The chat wants to trade. The chat wants to trade for sure too. And I'm on Nania's side too.
89th pick, you said? It's the 89th pick, right? Yeah, 145.
Yeah, it's 3 spots for a swap of a sixth for
I would trade.
Third. And you have 2 guys on the board. Like, I don't know about you guys, but like, out of all these guys, like Davis and all these guys, like these are the 2 biggest positions of need. And Farley, this all depends on medicals. We'll assume he's healthy. And Jenkins is a guy who is a tackle, but people say if you flip him into guard, which I'm fine with, he could be an elite guard. So let's take the trade. The chat wants to, so
let's do it.
We'll take it, get an extra third. They both are still there. So we're going to reject this. Future second, screw that.
All right, it's going Jenkins.
Yeah, so what is that what you're going to say, Jenkins?
All right, that's my vote. I go Jenkins.
What about you, Save? That's a hard one, to be honest, because Farley, like, if he's... Like,
it is hard because Farley is really, really
What's
good.
still there in the interior?
In the interior, like for the next pick, which is going to be, 34?
Yeah, what's still on the board?
Out of all these, it's really Wyatt Davis. Like, right? That's it. Leatherwood, is he a guy who people talk about kicking into guard or no? I don't.
Leatherwood, was he? I can't remember. Was he a bad fit?
Yeah. So one thing people talk about, and I just want to clarify this too. A lot of like these mock drafters out there will be like, "Oh, Ben Cleveland in the 4th round. Is he a scheme fit? Is Leatherwood a scheme fit?" Like a lot of people, they plug in these guys who are 340 pounds to the Jets. I'm like, they don't fit the Jets. Like a lot of people talk about the draft being deep with guards, but I actually think for what the Jets need, there's not a lot of guys in those. Like a lot of those guys in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th round are guys I see as power gap guys, which the Jets are not going to be.
Draft Network's labeling Leatherwood as a gap guy. Take it for what it's worth.
So we might.
I don't think he's a guard convert guy.
Yeah, that's another thing. You have to be converted.
So I think Jenkins. I would say Jenkins. I think Nania said Jenkins as well.
Who else for interior is there besides Wyatt Davis?
Past that,
I don't think Humphrey.
No. In front of that, everyone else is gone in front of him.
Nobody. Yeah, it's Davis and that's really it. Then it's Jenkins. I would say Jenkins is a smart pick here because listen, like Farley has that ceiling, but injuries scare me, especially after the D Milliner thing. And I feel like the Jets it's a little bit more deep this draft with corners than it is with offensive linemen who actually fit the Jets. That's something that people don't consider.
Okay. Yeah, Jenkins.
And something else people talk about too is Creed Humphrey. So my voice is cracked.
Humphrey's a tough one, right?
So the conversation around the Humphrey thing is center. Now, did the Jets not pick up Lindsley, or like did they try? Or did they not try because of the age, or did they not want to flip McGovern to guard? Like people talk about Humphrey, but like what if he's not a guard fit and the Jets just don't want to put McGovern at guard? So like, is he even an option?
I forgot who it was, but there was a report that they didn't pursue Lindsley just because of that.
Yeah.
Okay. So if they didn't pursue Lindsley because of that, which is what we heard, are they going to draft Humphrey? I'm not sure if that would happen. Like a lot of people label him like that. Like I would be happy with it, but only if they flip McGovern to guard, which they're not going to. So I think Jenkins is the pick here. Put him at left guard, right guard, and if you're
comfortable with the corners later, then yeah,
go. I think it's deeper corner than it is with guards. Do you feel the same way, Nania?
Yeah, I think so. Especially with the scheme fit aspect of it and the center aspect of it. Yeah, I think cornerback, we probably have a better chance at that.
And especially too, like considering the Jets situation, like we'd rather be risky with corner because that doesn't really affect Zach Wilson, in this situation. Yeah. So okay, Jenkins is the pick. Flip him to left guard, right guard, and now you have a competition between Greg Van Roten and Clark and him, and you have some good depth and all this stuff. So we're not taking that trade, right? Obviously, we're gonna reject, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So did Farley go?
Yeah, Saints.
Oh, to the Saints. Okay, so let's go with Sabo first. What would you do here?
Hold on. What do we got on the board here? Man.
Yeah, I got my eye on Jalen Phillips at this spot.
Jalen Phillips is still there.
Yeah. Is that realistic?
So
Yeah,
I've seen
think
him
he'll be
fall a
long
little
gone.
bit because of the whole concussion thing and the retirement thing. Like people are questioning that more recently.
Yes, he has been dropping because of that, but I don't think he'd be there at 34, but yeah, I would say Phillips too.
A lot of people are saying Humphrey right here, but again, so this is a conversation around what would you do versus what will the Jets do? And like personally here, like if I was a GM, would I take Humphrey and then flip McGovern to right guard or left guard? Probably, and like build that wall. But are the Jets going to do that? Like I don't know. People are saying Freiermuth. You guys both said Phillips, so I'm outvoted there.
Was Humphrey let me look at Humphrey real quick.
Yeah, I think Phillips is probably my guy here.
And now, can somebody write down these picks too? Because like I know it doesn't like save it after. I think we might be able to remember all three of us, and a lot of people like say, oh, just double down. We'll double down on O-line. People are saying, and people say, oh, we'll flip this tackle to guard or flip the center to guard. They're all different positions, obviously, and it's a lot harder to flip positions than people think it is. So if the Jets are not going to like, this is a situation where I don't think the Jets would take Humphrey here, but like they draft Phillips, and in terms of like his actual play on the field, he's probably the best rusher, if not like the second best rusher in this class. And now you have, dude, that defensive line. You have Phillips.
It would be insane.
Yeah, I'd go Phillips because Humphrey again. You don't know with Humphrey and with McGovern.
Yeah, I think they just want McGovern at center. I don't think Douglas has any interest in making that conversion.
And
no thought to Davis and stacking up the line. I think Phillips for like the position, not for the positional value, but like his ceiling right here is like people are saying he's the best rusher in the draft minus the concussions.
Yeah, I'm going Phillips.
Okay, yeah. So we got 2-1 regardless. I think Humphrey should definitely be a consideration if they were gonna flip McGovern and guard, but I just don't know. Okay, so Phillips, we gotta hope a corner falls a little bit. If there's anybody you want to trade up for, let me know too, because we can trade up a little bit easier now. A guy like Trey Smith, like looking at him here, again, another guy people talk about, but as a guy who people say is not a lateral mover, like he's not a fit for the Jets, in my opinion. So I don't think they would take him. Where are we at? 60? We're at 64, right? Or the 66 Jets pick?
Yep. A couple of guys I liked who just went off are Stokes and Cox.
Stokes, Cox, and Mayfield too. Molden is another guy I heard about too. Is pretty good, but okay, we're gonna reject this and reject that, right? Yeah. Obviously, we're not taking a picks for next year. Oh, it's my mom. I don't know if you guys can see that. Never mind. Okay, so what's the vote? Where are the votes here? What are we thinking?
This is an interesting one.
I have my pick. I'll go first with this one, and then one of you guys can do it.
All right.
And again, I want to preface this by saying, have I watched every single film of these guys and stuff like that? No. I'm assuming that where these guys are ranked is proper, but I could watch one of these guys and be like, oh, that guy freaking sucks. Like we should have taken him. But I'm just assuming these guys are ranked well. And I know Robinson, I think, is a longer guy. Starting Nickelback. Okay.
Nickel.
Is he a nickel in the NFL?
Let me see what he looks like here.
Physical engages receivers at the line doesn't necessarily make him sound like he needs to be a nickel.
5'11 and a half, 190. Slot.
That makes it more difficult.
Yeah.
But we need corner really bad.
A lot of people are saying he projects as a slot.
Yeah, he's a slot guy. Most of his snaps were slot last year.
We're gonna struggle at corner, aren't we?
Who's your pick, Blewett? I'm curious.
If he was 6 foot, not a slot guy, it would be Robinson easily.
He was your pick. Okay.
But I think the drop off from Guidry from Guidry playing a lot of snaps to Bless Austin playing a lot of snaps, like I feel like Guidry might be able to do it.
He's big though. Like he's, even though he played slot, he's a bigger guy.
I like Carter, but I'm not picking him here.
No, I'm not picking him here. So my thought is, like, again, if Robinson was 6'2", I would pick him, especially like considering what the Jets would do a little bit. Obviously, they like bigger corners. Like that's just the thing with Saleh and all these guys. So I wish we could trade down, to be completely honest, but we can't unless you guys want to offer a trade. My pick would be Bolton.
Yeah,
As a linebacker.
I think that's where I was looking.
Would-
Yeah, I guess he's a pretty good pick at this spot, I think.
Who?
Bolton, linebacker.
Yeah, linebacker. Yeah. And Campbell's still around. Maybe he falls. So they might struggle at corner, but it is what it is. But I think Bolton's my vote. Unless you guys want to try to trade down. You guys want to try to trade down like a couple spots and then pick between Bolton and maybe Campbell?
Yeah, give that a shot.
Let's go for that.
Let's say which one of these picks? Eagles, Bengals, Falcons?
I'm trying to think of who might take either of those guys. So we're trying to look for either a corner or a linebacker.
Well, the Eagles really need corners, don't they? They don't really have any.
So let's go for the Bengals pick.
Okay, so we'll go with the Bengals. What can we get for moving down a couple spots?
Probably.
Let me get the points.
Man, what would we even get? Like maybe a
66
fifth rounder.
6 to 69.
Let's try a fourth. We could always try a fifth after.
It's 15 points.
Oh, geez.
So you might be able to do a
fifth.
154 is 28 points. So try 154.
I don't know here, fellas. We have this. We could do a sixth. Is that really worth it?
I mean, I guess we could just sit here and take Robinson and just add to the cornerback position because it's so weak at this point, and we could probably hit on other things later.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, he's 6'1". About, I mean, he's smaller. He's like 190, but
okay, we're taking Robinson. I'm cool with that.
He's 6'1". They listed him at 5'11".
I'm looking at I mean, look, it's the school sites. They're probably pumping it up.
I'm sure he also runs a 4.33
on the school website. So
okay, let's see who falls here. So we have
Amari Rogers still here. I was looking. I liked Rogers.
Oh, you know what sucks too? The fact that like Moses went to because they need a linebacker because we have our edge. We need really another corner. We need another guard, but we definitely need a linebacker.
Well, we got 2 of the next 4 picks here because of the initial trade.
Would you guys want to trade down for next year? What pick is that? What is 141?
Is that 5th round?
That fifth round pick.
That's end of 4th.
Do we see
points?
Do we see 2 guys we like here enough to do that? Is my question.
Well, that Miners is interesting.
But isn't he a center?
Yeah, he was. So that does add to it.
Can he play? Can he play guard? That's the question. We could be
Jordan Smith here, but we obviously knocked out edge already.
Yeah, we could be lazy and just assume that we'd want that Myers can flip to guard. Like we could be lazy and just say that like without knowing. But we could also trade and get a 5th, and then take a guy like Dwayne Eskridge.
Your guy Ben Cleveland here, we multiple times talked about let's not draft him.
So there's only 2 guys I see right here who I would be like okay with taking. Like even though I think it's a little bit earlier for receiver, I'm pretty sure Eskridge is like the playmaker that Robbie's talking about.
Yeah.
So I would be okay with that or with Miners, and again being lazy and assuming that he could flip to guard. And is he a skin fit? Some people are talking about that too.
He's so hard to like get information on because he played D3.
Okay.
There isn't like a ton of.
We got people in the chat. We got people in the chat who I appreciate who are saying he played guard in college too.
So we can go with him then.
Or do you want to trade down, get an extra 5th, and hope that either him or Eskridge falls?
Well, who do we got between us? I don't think the Rams are taking O-line. Detroit might. I say stay put and let's take him and try to continue adding to the O-line. Because he's like one of those guys, small school guys who are so dominant that they sort of get enough love to get onto the radar. So it seems like he might be successful. I would be okay with that pick.
What are your thoughts, Sabo? Because I'm torn.
Who are you guys talking about?
Would you guys rather take Miners and have him play guard? People in the chat are telling us he played guard, which is great because then you have your 2 guards, you have your center, you have like pretty much everything. Or do you risk it? Dwayne Eskridge is a playmaker you want and pick up an extra 5th round pick for that risk.
I think I would I would trade down here actually.
Oh my God, I'm torn. Chat.
Because it's only
need
2
the chat.
picks and 140. That's a late 4th round pick. I like that extra pick.
We got 2 people in a row saying take the trade. Let's see. A couple more people comment. Let's see what we're doing here because I'm torn.
It's late, really late 4th, but still 2 spots.
We got 3 take the trades. 4 take the trades. Okay. Chat speaks. This is risky.
Let's hope he's there.
He's gonna go right now. Oh, he's still there. We made out.
Good call, everyone.
Back to back.
Good call. Yeah.
Okay, sort of like Douglas with Mims. One of those hindsighted good trades.
Which, by the way,
I know you're not a huge fan. I know you're not.
I was not a huge fan of that trade because I really like
Mims.
The Mims trade. Like I get what happened. That's playing Monday morning quarterback. Like just the risk of not getting Mims there. I didn't like that trade. Like of course at the end we get him and get the pick. I appreciate it, but like for that risk, I didn't like it. But
and that's why I wouldn't expect a receiver in the 2nd round or high because Douglas showed they really needed a receiver last draft.
So we're taking Quinn Miners.
Yeah.
And then we have the next pick too, which we're not taking the 4th.
No.
We're not taking that either, right? That's way too far down. Okay, so we don't need another offensive lineman. He's not a scheme fit anyway. Let's see who's a little bit lower. Do we really Adibo, Tremble? I know they're lower. They're only like 10 spots lower. Like, do you take an Adibo here?
At this point, we could scroll lower for sure.
Yeah, like there's some guys like who, again, I don't know. Like I've seen Adibo in the 3rd round. And I know he has the size. Like I think he's like a 6'1" guy. So deep speed is suspect. Something the Jets not necessarily worried about. Again, this is just assuming these people are right on him, but we anticipate
6'1", 190.
I would. Okay, so I'm going. So if it was me, and you guys can say differently, I'm taking Adibo here because I think I still think it's a big need, even with taking Robinson.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Yeah,
I do like that. I mean, it's a little high to go wide receiver because I feel like there are some guys who I like in the 5th, 6th round who can kind of hit that playmaker role at wide receiver. So I don't think we necessarily have to do it here, but Eskridge is really, really good. He was a 5th-year guy though, but he had a fantastic season, and he is sort of, I think, can be that guy, that playmaker guy. But I think cornerback we're still at the part of the draft where you can kind of rely on these guys to play for you right away, and cornerback is bigger. So I agree with Adibo.
Yeah, pull the trigger.
So we're looking at it. We need a linebacker still pretty bad, so we have to hope somebody falls. But okay, Adibo. So now we have 2 corners, 2 guards. Like we addressed the big needs. Like
we didn't draft a linebacker yet.
No, we don't. We have an edge. We need a linebacker pretty badly still.
Why was I thinking we drafted a linebacker?
Where is Chad Surratt's still there? Hopefully he drops unless you want to trade up a couple picks.
That's a guy I want for sure.
Oh, do we trade up a couple picks to oh well, you have McGrone there too. Okay, let's keep it going, I guess. Okay. I think it's an easy
Surratt.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, I can agree with that.
Yeah. Okay, so our biggest needs are filled. Let's take Surratt, and then now what's our biggest need? We would say 4th receiver or 5th receiver, and I would say tight end.
Look at tight end. Tight end, playmaking receiver,
or back.
Yeah, could look at a running back if we like one.
I would argue, even if there's like Yeboah went, and so did.
Who is their punt returner right now? Barrios still?
Yeah, I would say so. Don't really have a kick returner though.
Yeah, but
I think Vincent Smith can kick return though.
I would argue, like, depending on like, what is it called? Who falls? They could take 2 linebackers too. Like, you don't know how it falls.
I like Jalen Darden here. I really like him. He's that playmaking guy. He had the most broken tackles after the catch in the nation last year. He's really good. He's got a lot of quickness, shiftiness, like that cut on a dime abilities to ball. I like him.
People really wanted us to trade up for a tight end, which I get the need. That it might be a thing we address next year, unfortunately.
Yeah, I like Nania's thinking here.
So the thing, let's. Okay, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, he's a small guy, but I feel like that's kind of what we want.
like Schwartz is a guy like the Jets don't have like that burner receiver either. But if you like Darden, I trust you because I don't really know about him. So this is a guy who can replace Jamison Crowder, and then your receiver core next year is Darden, maybe re-sign Cole, Mims, and Davis.
Yeah, so I vote Darden here.
Okay, and Sabo agrees, so we're gonna take Darden.
I'm standing on the table here.
Okay, he's staying on the table. He threw it down. That's what we're doing. So we really need a tight end, and we.
Anyone a little bit further down?
Yeah, let's see.
What did the running back situation look like?
Jamar Jefferson. There's not a lot of guys. Chuba Hubbard is a guy who, like, I've seen people who really don't like him as a late round guy.
I think he had a much better 2019 season, and then he took a big step back this last year.
Okay, so reevaluating, we have our edge, we have a linebacker, we have 2 corners, we have 2 guards. The biggest needs are still tight end, running back,
Linebacker.
And another linebacker, like a depth
This is
guy.
a tough one.
Yeah, this is a harder one.
I actually
Wallow?
did a breakdown on this guy, Drake Jackson from Kentucky. He's a center, so not a need, but we are in the 5th round here. So, if he's a backup, whatever. But I do like Drake Jackson from Kentucky. Pretty good center.
What about Kylan Hill? Is he still there, running back? Not just looking down later. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so maybe if you want to take him or Hawkins, people talk about Hawkins too. I know he's really light though. That's a problem.
Yeah, there's still running backs.
At tight end, Trey McKitty is one of the top graded run blockers, one of the absolute best in the class.
Does he have receiving? Can he?
No, I think he had like 6 catches last year, but
they say well-rounded tight end. I don't.
Well, I mean that's a stretch for a guy with like 5 catches.
Yeah, that's fine. Do people want to reach for him? I don't know.
I think he'll be there though.
In a couple
later
picks.
on, he's 190. So
there's a couple of good guys here. Like I would say, like all things being equal, like I would like to take Schwartz or Smith, but like how many receivers do we need? Like we're 5 deep now.
Yeah. My guy would be Jackson here. I actually did watch some of him. I think he could be a decent backup center. I know we talked about centers, them not really converting, but I think that's more important with an earlier pick where you're trying to start right away at this point. I think you could look for a backup. So
what about linebacker? Can you go to the linebacker tab?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, Wallow's not a bad one there either because they really do need another guy.
It's at 150.
Snowden's a fast guy, right? I think tall, somewhat athletic, plays tough, smart. Sounds like a Joe Douglas guy.
This could be a trade down spot too.
Projects as a 3-4 inside linebacker who must add bulk. That doesn't necessarily go together. Want to trade? We can trade down, get extra picks. I don't really love anybody on the board right here, to be honest. We need to get that kicker.
Next pick?
When is the next pick? I don't know if we could see that on this website. Oh, wait, go. Oh, 154.
We're close.
I would say trade down and get extra Jackson,
but
okay.
Just for some O-line depth. He is one of the best pass protecting centers.
What does the chat think? Snowden, Diablo. Yeah, I think safety is another one. Like I could see them drafting a safety late too.
Yeah.
My vote's to trade down. What do you think, Sabo?
Yeah, I think trade down too.
Okay. What's a spot we're comfortable with going to? Who do we have a connection here with?
Yeah,
the Colts, 165, 155.
Yeah, Niners. Why not the Niners?
Yep. Are we gonna get? What are we gonna get for 10 spots?
That's what I'm thinking at this point in terms of this draft. I'm not sure what we're even getting at this point to trade down in the 5th.
He's probably right, but let's see.
An extra 7th. We could try to trade with we could try to trade with a dumb team like the Texans.
What's the current pick right now? What number? 146?
That should be a part of the formula. It should adjust for the intelligence of the teams.
Yes.
You can make better trades with the Texans than you can with the Niners.
Try to add San Francisco's 172nd, 172.
Oh, hold on.
Because they have a bunch of picks in this 5th round. They have 3.
San Fran. Okay, so we're giving up 146 for what? What are we doing? 155
Yeah,
and
155 and 172.
Yeah, 172.
wow, I'd be happy with that. I don't think they're going to take it. No.
Yeah.
We're going with stupid team. 158 and 195. We cool with
All right,
that?
let's try that.
Go for it.
I want another pick later. I really do. Hold on. Let's see. We're gonna. I wish we could force it. 158 for 203 and 146. Hold on. Let's see one more time. Then we're gonna go because we're in the later rounds of the draft. People are probably like, "What the hell?"
Drinking their coffee.
This is the last time that we're gonna take the center that he likes. Yeah. Okay,
All right,
take
let's
the center.
go. Drake Jackson season.
There you go.
It's okay.
Diablo. People are talking about safety. I get that too.
Are you kidding me, Niners?
One pick. I'll take one. I'll trade down one pick.
What are you kidding me, you guys?
We're taking it.
Yeah, let's do that.
Offer us
cool
a
with that.
trade.
That's an easy one.
Just offered you one.
So my thinking right here is either I would say Wallow or Diablo. So the thing with Wallow is like looking at him, like what they say again, just assuming they're right. Average size and play speed. They just need guys who can cover and move. So I don't know if that's necessarily the best fit.
6'2", 230.
Where Diablo,
Former
linebacker size safety who flashed
Yep.
dominance. So he's a guy who could play like maybe a safety and a this is the pick I'm going with. If
Yeah,
this is
developmental will, former safety.
true. Diablo.
Wallow.
But like based on like what I think like later rounds, you want to take guys who have those high ceilings, in my opinion, and like to see a guy where it says size and speed are off the charts for a defensive back and who play some safe or some linebacker. I think this is a guy. That's my pick, Diablo.
Did
Right
you say
here.
Diablo?
Yeah, Divine Diablo.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think this is a good spot. I could definitely see the safety pick at some point.
Who could play some will too. It
Yeah,
seems
like a versatile type of safety, like with the linebacker, so versatility. So I can get on board with that one.
especially when they were looking at who was the safety they're looking at earlier? Neil? Was it Neil?
Yeah, Neil.
To play will too.
He has really good coverage numbers too. 1 touchdown, 4 picks this past season. So I can get on board with that.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, cool. So now the biggest needs are still tight end and running back, I would say, like a developmental tight end.
We should take a kicker, the guy from Florida, McPherson.
We have a 7th.
So
We have a 7th. Let's see where Harris falls. I think we have Hill. If Hill falls, I've heard some good things about Hill. Where are we at?
He's gone.
He just went, of course, to the damn Patriots.
there goes Trey McKitty.
Did Chaz Newsom
Wow.
get picked?
Wow. Offense, tight end. Is there anybody here? Oh no. Sorry guys. We don't have a tight end this year. We need to get one in a future year. Hawkins?
Jarrett Patterson has some of like the best missed tackle numbers. He played at Buffalo, but he was one of the most elusive guys.
Is that a guy you guys would be willing to? I think running back's a good pick.
Yeah, I
Unless you
think
want
running back's
Patterson or Hawkins.
Let's see.
Undersized ball carriers,
Pull
dangerous
up what it
base.
was. Yards after contact. He's at the 98th percentile in the nation last year.
Who's Patterson?
Patterson.
Is he more of a power? How big is he?
Let me check.
5'9", 195.
Yeah.
Both
Tremble's
guys are
not
pretty-
there. Somebody's asking.
Both guys are pretty similar. Hawkins 5'9", 196. Yeah.
This is like an explosive guy where Patterson's like the more well-rounded guy, it seems like.
You said Hawkins is a more explosive guy?
Yeah, that's what it looks like. At least looking
Also,
at them.
probably make Mekhi Becton happier. Might motivate him a little bit more because they're former teammates.
Well,
So,
what do we have right now? Ty Johnson.
like a Scotty McKnight pick.
Yeah. What are you doing? Sabo, you'll be the closer. Do you want Patterson or Hawkins here? We'll take a running back.
All right. Yeah. Go with the yards after contact guy.
Okay, so cool with that. So now now it's really just taking like BPA, right?
Yeah.
Some of these guys I've seen higher, like Janaris Robinson's apparently like of course he's like a freak. I've seen Vincent higher in other mock drafts too at corner. LeConte I've seen higher too.
Are there any kickers available?
Yeah, I don't think that kicker went. Where special teams kicker? Yeah,
I think the best guy is McPherson from Florida.
from Florida. Yeah, he's rated a lot lower in this one, but I'll trust you on that. 'Cause I'm not going to say
I don't know why
kickers.
his field goal percentages are way higher than
Okay.
the Miami guy.
Can we agree to take a pick kicker 7th round? Doing it. Okay. Do we have any other picks?
I think that's it.
You didn't take my guy. We're gonna regret that.
I took the wrong
forever.
one. We're gonna say it's McPherson. I'm sorry. We got one of them. I clicked the wrong one. I was focused on the other picks.
Nania's special team.
Who else is still here? Do we have? I don't know if we have another one. He's a fullback, Ben Mason. I know that. I don't think we have any picks. No, we don't. All right. So what would our line? So let's talk about okay. So they do come up at the end. So right now,
How
Zach
many picks
Wilson.
did we end up making? 12?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah.
12.
We turned 10 into 12. Which you could argue that he might trade up and turn 10 into 7, but you never know. Okay, so our offense right now for the Jets would be Zach Wilson. We have the 4 or 5 running backs with Patterson there. Receiver, we'd have Davis, Mims, Crowder, Cole, Barrios, and Darden. Offensive line from left to right. I don't know necessarily where Jenkins would play, but let's just say next to Becton because they're both nasty apparently. Or Jenkins is nasty, but you have Becton, Jenkins, McGovern, Miners at right guard or left guard, whatever, and Fant. I'm happy with the offensive line. That's for damn sure.
Yeah.
I would say tight end's the biggest need on offense right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then moving on to the defense, we'd have, dude, that front 7.
It's ridiculous.
That would be great. That's why I really would like to see an edge pick. I know that there are bigger needs. I would like to hit guard or cornerback first, but just imagine that they can get Jalen Phillips, Ojulari, one of those guys. It would be absurd. They could legitimately have the best pass rush in the league this year.
I mean, having 2/3 is just so underrated. As much as people know how big it is, it's still underrated.
And next year it's 2 first and 2 seconds.
Yeah,
but so the defensive line, again, so now you're looking at what is it called? Lawson and Phillips at edge with Rankins and Q in the middle with guys like Franklin Myers, Curry, Fadukasi as backups to rotate in. Are you kidding me? That is ridiculous. And then I'm discounting guys like Phillips and Huff and all those guys too. The linebackers we'd have would be Mosley, Davis, and Chaz Surratt is the will, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy with that. And then safety, we'd have May, Davis, Joyner, and Diablo. Pretty happy with that. And then corner is a little young, but you'd have Adibo out wide with Hall, Robinson in the slot, and then backups of Austin and Guidry. And then is there anything else I'm missing?
Yeah, that would be rough this year probably, but that's the benefit of a great pass rush is that their jobs are made easier. And, you're not going to have to blitz as much. You would assume they would be one of the lowest blitzing teams in the league. So you'd be able to have more guys back there to help them out. Yeah.
And now we have next year's picks too. So now you can look at tight end early. You could look at corner early still, So if this were to be the draft, let's say this is, obviously we didn't do our film study and all that stuff on these guys, but what would be your grade for this draft? And then with that, what would be your expectations for this team? What record would you be happy with? Again, a lot of things this is a really generic type of topic, but grade and obviously we did it. So we're gonna give it an A+, but grade and expectations.
I got to go A- on the grade because Phillips at 34 to me is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Expectations. I mean, it's a wide ranging scale. Let's go 7 and 10.
I hate that sound. It's
I know
gross.
it doesn't. I had to think about it before I said it.
Yeah. What about you, Nania?
Yeah, I think I'd go with like a B plus in this draft. I'm like, it's not necessarily like the dream draft that you can put together in terms of like your ideal guy, other than Phillips at 34 is obviously ridiculous. But like there are cornerbacks I think I like more than the ones we got in terms of mostly just what they do in terms of production, because neither of those two guys are great in that area. And also the same thing for interior O-line. I really like the late round picks though. And also Jenkins, Phillips, Wilson is great. But in terms of the record prediction, like it just, the defense can be really good this year. Cornerback is going to be the biggest, X factor, but the pass rush is going to be great. The run defense should be, like we said earlier, I don't think it's going to be as dominant as it has usually been because they have a lot of guys up front like Lawson, Franklin Myers, Rankins, who are sort of pass game first, but that should still be top 10. It's going to be a ridiculous front seven. Safety should be good. And linebacker is a question mark next to Mosley, but if Mosley is Mosley, he's a star at that spot. So it can be, the defense has top 5 sort of potential. And then offensively, that's where the question marks are. And it comes down to mostly what Wilson gives you right off the bat, which you, being realistic, would expect wouldn't be that much, just because that's the fact of the matter. Most rookie quarterbacks don't give you much. So I could see them having sort of a Washington football team sort of season where they have a great defense that really carries the team and they are very competitive because of that, and win like 6 or 7 games. But the pieces are in place for them to have a really good run game. If this offensive line is good enough, with the skill position blocking is a lot better. And the run blocking last year, I think, was probably average. The pass protection was a bigger problem, but run blocking, they were okay, I think. And, with another year of progression for Becton, more upgrades in the draft, hopefully, it could be a good run game. And that could really help out Wilson. And I think they upgrade receiver with Davis and Cole. So the offense could stay afloat, even if Wilson isn't good right away. I think the offense could still be not atrocious, like maybe a mid-20s, low 20s sort of offense. And if the defense is elite, maybe you do go close to 500. Going 500 is impossible now, but maybe you win 8 games.
What, 8-1?
8-1 could happen as well. I'd probably say 6 or 7 wins, defense first team is probably what the reasonable expectation would be.
Yeah, we got an A, we got a B plus, we got a B. Somebody said that we didn't address backup tackle. We can't address everything, but I would say like the biggest needs on this team, like going forward into next year, still be corner, linebacker, tight end, maybe like a stud running back. But overall, like we came into this draft, like there's a couple of good things we did. I think we had a weakness at offensive line. We took 2 guys in the top 100. We had a weakness at corner. We took 2 guys in the top 100. Like regardless if we like them or not, we still have to study exactly what they are. Phillips, you made a really good defensive line, potentially elite. Like if Rankins rounds back into form, Phillips hits his ceiling next to Q and Lawson with the backups like JFM and all the guys they have, Fadukasi, you can't tell me there's not an argument for the Jets to have the best front 4 in the NFL.
For sure.
And then you're looking at some other things that we addressed late, like, Surratt and playmaking receiver that Robbie wanted. We all wanted backup center. So yeah, you need a backup tackle next year, a tight end, a running back, a corner. Yeah, that's fine. But we got kicker. Like I would give this an A- draft. There's some guys maybe I would have traded up for, but A-. A lot of people seem to be in this. We got another B plus. Okay. So B plus, A-. I'm cool with that. I think you guys are forcing too much at corner, as I said, but, based on the board, I think it's actually pretty solid. But I would say like 7, 8 wins. 9. I can see 9 wins, with this team, 9 and 8, which is just disgusting. The schedule's easy. And if that front 7 or the front 4 specifically, like balls out, that's the making of a top 10 defense, even with the inexperience at corner. So pretty pumped about this draft. I think that's really it. Do we have anything else to close out the live stream with? Is there anything else you guys want to discuss pretty quickly before we get out of here? Because we've been live streaming for like almost 4 hours now. So.
Someone said Blewett owes Nania a 3-hour Sam Ficken film room.
Debatable. I know very, very little about kicking, and like one of them is like the plant foot has to be strong to not kick the laces. Like other than that, there's not much. So I'll give them a 2-minute film review.
Yeah, there we go.
That'd be great. That'd be
Okay.
fantastic.
I promise if they draft a kicker, I will do a film review on a kicker. Anything else you guys want to close out with?
No, I'm good. I didn't trigger Joe as much as I would like to hope to trigger Joe with the Nets.
I think you're too relaxed to trigger me. Like Kyle's a little bit more like he's a little bit more like forceful. You're kind of like, yeah, how about them Nets though?
Yeah,
like,
he's got the tone. He knows the tone to usually you.
Yes,
it's gonna take some work. It's gonna take some work, but
you'll get used to it.
I'll get there.
A lot of people are pretty happy with the draft. They would take it and stuff. So I appreciate you guys liking our GM ability. Nania, any closing thoughts?
No, I mean, I'm really looking forward to this draft. I think it's some of the best ammunition they've had in a while. And I feel like it's very particular what kind of holes they have to fill. It's not ideal necessarily to have, like we would have liked to have knocked out linebacker, cornerback. So they'd have more flexibility, but it will be interesting to see because they have these positions that they really have to fill. And it looks like, barring an unexpected signing in the next few weeks, that they're going to be finding starters high in this draft. So it's we say every draft is important, but for those reasons, in addition to the obvious quarterback pick, but in addition to that, it is a very important draft because I think that you could get up to 4 starters out of this draft, maybe 5 if you want to include the slot. So Darwin even kicker. So I think it's important draft for that reason.
Yeah, like let's say like too, like with the draft, like something that people don't necessarily want to hear. Like, let's say we do take Aaron Robinson, they think he's a slot, and like they don't know, nobody else falls to them in the 3rd, 4th round. Well, can they have a guy like Steven Nelson on speed dial after the draft and pick him up? Like that's a possibility. They're still going to make signings after the draft.
Yep.
But yeah, we appreciate everybody for chatting. I literally only said that because I read Sabo's thing about chatting. I never say that word. Yeah. But we appreciate everybody for joining, for talking, for the super chats for the couple we got. This is something we're going to try to do more often with the 3 of us, at least once a month, if not twice a month. And maybe more after that. We don't really know, but we'll definitely be talking the 3 of us more often. We appreciate